You awaken to the faint glow of a torch flickering against cool stone walls, the scent of burning resin mingling with the musty warmth of ancient mud brick. And you feel the breath of the desert night brushing your skin as you stand on the threshold of a world long past, a world that beckons you to wander slowly through the echoes of sand-worn temples and sun-baked courtyards. And as you give in to the gentle pull of history, you might consider lingering here just a moment longer. While you drift, you can subscribe softly to our channel to join this quiet journey into antiquity. And, if you wish, you can leave a quiet note below, telling us where in the world you lie, awake tonight, and what hour pours over your window pane. For together, we will let these distant memories become your guide through the moonlit sands of ancient Egypt. You step softly onto the smooth sandstone bank, where the Nile's current flows with a gentle murmur that reaches your ears as if it were an ancient lullaby. And you feel cool water brushing against your ankles, as the river's breath rises in thin ripples beneath a sky tinged with soft apricot hues, the air carrying the faint scent of damp reeds and sweet lotus blossoms drifting from an unseen marsh just beyond the bend. And as the cool breeze lifts stray wisps of your linen robe, you sense the morning chill slipping away, warmed slowly by the promise of a rising sun that will soon spill molten gold across the water's surface. You lean forward, fingertips grazing the glassy surface, watching filaments of light dance like fireflies across the dark green depths, and you imagine yourself standing on a threshold between worlds, where eternity meets each passing moment in the silent dialogue of river and stone. The sand beneath your feet shifts with grainy softness as you turn to follow a narrow footpath carved by generations of fishermen and farmers who came before you, their sandals worn thin by the relentless sun, their voices once echoing in laughter and song as they hauled in nets heavy with tilapia and carp. And now, in the hush of this early hour, you can almost hear their whispered stories woven into the cool morning air. You inhale the scent of fermenting grains drifting from a distant mud brick kiln where women lean over steaming ovens to shape dough for fresh bread. And you taste the faint tang of sourdough mingling with the salt of the river breeze, a flavor that promises warmth and sustenance. You pause to watch a fisherman guide his small wooden skiff nearer the shore, the thin mast casting a slender silhouette against the pale sky. And you feel the gentle sway beneath your feet as a brief wave laps the bank, soft and insistent, reminding you of the river's steady pulse. Long sentences drift through your mind as you recall tales of pharaohs who gazed upon this very water, believing it to be the lifeblood of creation itself, the giver of all abundance, ancient priests who carved hieroglyphs recounting celestial battles and floods of divine promise, all penned with reverence to this eternal flow that carried life across desert sands and nourished fields of flax and barley for countless seasons. You cannot hear those voices, but you sense their presence in the quiet patter of fish scales shimmering beneath your touch. And you wonder if the wind carries faint echoes of their prayers to distant temples carved from limestone by master artisans whose hammers rang like thunder along the river's edge. You wander further along the bank, footsteps leaving shallow impressions in the soft, wet sand, and you sense each grain's coolness beneath your toes, as though the earth itself remembers the weight of every traveler who paused here to rest, to drink, to wonder. You lean in to observe a cluster of dark river rocks, smoothed by centuries of water flowing around them, and you run your fingers over their glossy surfaces, feeling how the Nile's patience has polished even the roughest edges to gentle curves over untold millennia. Breathing deeply, you catch the scent of mud and algae mingling with the sweet fragrance of yellow acacia, blossoms drifting from a nearby tree, and you allow the world to shrink until all that remains is the whisper of the river, the warmth of the rising sun brushing your skin, and the pulse of an ancient land flowing through your bloodstream in rhythm with your own heart. You step back as a small fishing boat drifts downstream, its woven reed basket half full of silver blue fish reflecting early sunlight in a burst of brilliance. And you watch the figure of a fisherman dark-skinned, lean, his muscles rippling as he hauls in his Nethys face calm, practiced, as though he moves in harmony with the river's flow rather than against it. You sense his presence but do not approach, letting the distance stretch so that you become an observer of this timeless dance between man and water. A dance that has played out since memory began, when the first travelers navigated these currents in fragile papyrus boats, seeking new fields to till, new lands to claim under the watchful eyes of gods who governed harvests and floods alike. You imagine their voices rising in prayer to Hapi, the god of the Nile, begging for gentle floods that would bless the fields rather than destroy them. And though no chant rises on the morning air, you feel the resonance of that ancient plea in the gentle rhythm of water, lapping against reeds. You wander onward until you reach a shallow inlet where papyrus reeds sway in a languid breeze, their feathery tops quivering like silent sentinels, guarding a hidden realm of frogs and turtles and dragonflies that dart above the water's mirror. You step forward until the sand gives way to mud, warmed by the morning light, and you feel each squelch beneath your foot, as though sinking into a world both solid and fluid. Anchored by sunlight and gravity, yet alive with small movements beneath the surface, tadpoles flicking their tails, water beetles skimming the mirrored glass, and tiny fish darting away from your presence. Rising slowly, you brush your hand across the soft underside of a broken reed and feel fine sand cling to your fingertips as the river slips back to its steady hum. And you realize that this place breathes in unison with you, that each heartbeat echoes through the waters, veins like a silent drum. Your path curves around a cluster of reeds until you arrive at a cluster of mud brick dwellings hugging the river's bank. Their thatched roofs low and weathered, walls stained dark from years of flooding that reclaim their edges in seasons past, yet still standing strong, testament to human resilience and the nurturing power of the Nile. You step into a small courtyard where an elder woman bakes flat loaves on a heated clay griddle, and you sense the warmth radiating through the air as she lifts a steaming loaf, the crust still crisp, the interior soft and warm, and you inhale deeply, tasting the yeasty aroma mingling with smoky char, the very smell that sustained ancient families as they gathered before sunrise to break their fast. You watch as she dips her hand into a shallow bowl of salted fish paste and spreads it thin across a piece of loaf, the oil glinting like amber in the early light, and you feel your mouth water at the thought of taking a bite, but instead you stand quietly, allowing the moment to settle into your senses like a memory just born. You continue along the river's edge, your footsteps slowing so that each movement becomes deliberate, each breath a conscious invitation to this ancient land. And you let the rhythm of your steps match the steady flow of water beside you until you reach a small dock where wooden feluccas are tied by thick ropes wound around carved posts. You watch the ropes twist and release as a gentle tug from the river causes the boat to sway, and you feel the movement beneath your fingertips when you reach out to touch the warped wood, worn smooth by countless hands over centuries. You imagine pharaohs' emissaries gliding along this very water, bearing precious offerings of gold and incense to temples upriver, their eyes lifted to distant horizons where distant dunes yielded to fertile fields, where prosperity rose like a promise beneath the ever-watchful gaze of the sun, God Ra. You step onto a sun-bleached plank and allow the boat's gentle sway to cradle your weight for a moment. And you feel the slight give beneath your shoe, as though the river invites you to join its spirited dance before you step away and continue your journey along a narrow path bordered by slender reeds and low mud walls. You feel the heat beginning to climb as the sun breaks fully over the horizon, and you sense the chill fading from the air, replaced by the warmth you will carry with you, even when shadows lengthen later in the day. You pause to watch a fisherman cast his net into a deeper channel where the water runs swift and dark, and you feel fascination tingle through your limbs as the net unfurls like a giant spider silk caught between earth and sky before rushing down into the current, drawing back heavy with promise. You step back onto the soft sand, each grain cool beneath your feet, even as the world warms around you, and you hear the distant cry of a water bird soaring overhead, its wings slicing the air in a silent hymn to the morning light. You turn your gaze upstream and see the faint outlines of palm-lined islands drifting on the horizon, and you feel the urge to wander there next, to press your hand against a slender trunk and feel the rough bark yield to your palm, to taste the droplet of sweet sap that drips from a frayed leaf, to imagine the world beyond vast, golden, waiting, But for now, you remain here, at the river's edge, letting every detail wash over you like a soft current, the whisper of wind through papyrus, the gentle clap of reeds echoing out, the warmth of mud beneath your fingers, the distant hum of voices faint as a dream, and the endless promise of a world held together by this winding ribbon of water that has carried life through centuries and will carry it still long after footprints fade. Short, a final glance. You step away, leaving behind the cool water's whisper, carrying its echo deep within you. You rise before the sun has fully claimed the sky, guiding your steps toward a narrow inlet where lotus flowers unfold their petals like silent apostles of light. And you inhale deeply as the cool air carries the sweet perfume of white blossoms drifting across calm water, a scent so delicate it seems woven from morning mist and honeyed dew. You step onto a smooth, sun-bleached stone that juts from the riverbank, and you feel its once cool surface warm beneath your palm, as though the day's promise is already seeping into the world. The water's glassy expanse reflects pale rose and lavender hues, and each blossom floats as if arranged by divine hand, their petals unfurling in gentle symmetry around golden centers that glow like embers in a slumbering hearth. You gaze at the lotus, its slender stem rooted in shadowed mud, yet its flower riding aloft on the water's surface, a delicate balance between darkness and light, and you sense a quiet reverence in this moment, a quiet miracle born of stillness. You lean closer, fingertips brushing the fringe of a pale petal, and you feel its texture thin as silk, yet firm beneath your touch, cool like a whisper against your skin. You imagine the artisans of distant temples harvesting these blooms at dawn, their fingers stained with resin and pollen, weaving garlands that would adorn statues of gods who embodied purity and rebirth. The lotus is sacred to Thema, symbol of creation, emerging from chaos. Yet, here you stand, simply as an observer, invited into this ritual of stillness, where every inhalation carries the faint tang of water mingled with the sweetness of dew. You breathe in once more, tasting lotus's faint bitterness, like memory tempered with hope, and you sense the world contracting until only this rippling tableau remains: the petals, the sun's first rays teasing the horizon, the soft flutter of dragonfly wings skimming the water's surface. You step off the stone and let your bare feet sink into the soft mud at the water's edge, and you feel each grain shift beneath your toes. As you approach a cluster of taller reeds where the lotus stems emerge, the reeds brush against your calves, their slender stalks whispering like old ghosts as the breeze stirs them, and you sense both shelter and exposure in their slender embrace. The water here is shallow, revealing mottled pebbles beneath a thin film of reflection. You dip your toes and feel the cool current swirl around your ankles, carrying fragments of petals downstream like drifting dreams. You draw closer to a particularly radiant bloom whose petals bear hints of pale pink, tinged by the sun's earliest glimmer, and you reach out carefully, cupping the flower in both hands as though you hold a fragment of dawn. In that instant, you smell heady notes of sweet almond oil and the faint musk of decaying green in aroma that speaks of resurrection and the cyclical tide of life and death, reminding you that even brightest beauty kneels before time. A sudden rustle behind you draws your gaze to a slender prow, making its way across the inleton old wooden boat, manned by a gray-robed priest, carrying a shallow tray of incense burners and oil lamps. The priest moves with deliberate grace, his robes whispering against the deck as he kneels beside a stone platform partially submerged. And you feel the air shift as he lights a small lamp, the flame flickering like a heartbeat in the gentle dawn. You watch as he lifts the lotus you hold and places it reverently at the water's edge, dipping a wick into fragrant oil before feeding the flame until it dances golden against glass walls. A curl of smoke rises, its scent mingling with lotus's own fragrance, and you sense the intersection of mortal devotion and divine presence in this act, a prayer carried skyward on drifting petals and incense. You stay silent as the priest murmurs in a language older than memory, his voice low but unwavering, as though each syllable is a thread stitching heaven and earth together. You cannot understand the words, yet you feel their power in the reverent hush that envelops this hidden shrine. You step back, allowing the priest space, and you notice how the water ripples outward from the offering, sending soft waves toward the far shore where palm trees stand sentinel. The fronds sway gently, casting latticework shadows on the still river, and you feel the breeze lift stray hairs from your neck, carrying with it the dryness of desert sand and the sweet hint of lotus that lingers on your skin. You breathe in again, letting the scent settle into your senses as you turn toward a narrow footbridge crafted from weathered wooden beams, its rails carved with simple symbols of the Ankh and the Eye of Horus, each line worn smooth by countless hands over seasons of devotion. You step onto the bridge, and each board groans softly beneath your weight, a reminder of the world's age and the stories pressed into these timbers by pilgrims, priests, and travelers alike. Halfway across, you pause to lean over the rail and watch the lotus petals drifting downstream, some widening their petals as they float, others folding inward, as though finding repose beneath the river's surface, and you feel a twinge of melancholy, as though you observe not a gentle dawn, but a fleeting dream, destined to vanish when the sun climbs higher. You step off the bridge onto a narrow causeway flanked by stone pillars, each topped with carved representations of lotus buds, frozen in eternal bloom, and you sense the weight of ritual in these stones, hewn from quarries upriver and transported by barge under the watchful eyes of royal overseers. You run your fingertips along one pillar, feeling the cool grain of limestone accented by amber-hued flecks where mica catches the light, and you recall that craftsmen centuries ago chiseled sacred hieroglyphs into these surfaces, invocations to Osiris, Isis, and Ra, each groove a testament to devotion and artistry. The causeway leads you toward a low platform where a single lotus basin carved from alabaster sits, its sculpted petals forming the rim of a shallow pool that holds still water fallen from the river's edge. You step closer until you see your reflection skyward, eyes weary yet alight with wonder. Lips parted as though about to speak a vow, and you feel an urge to kneel, to press your forehead to the cool stone in silent homage. But instead, you stand quietly, letting the memory of your own face dissolve into the basin's mirror, as though the lotus itself beckons you into another realm. You lean forward, and the water's surface ripples, releasing a soft, sonorous echo that resonates through the platform like a distant drumbeat. And you imagine that beneath the basin's depths lie carvings of primordial waters from which all life sprang, each ripple a whisper from a time before kings and temples, before even the river found its course. You raise your hand and dip a fingertip into the smooth water, tasting lotus's sweetness mingled with cool mineral notes, as though the stone itself has absorbed centuries of offerings, prayers, and forgotten laments. The air around you shifts as a chorus of birds rises in a flurry of wings, their calls slicing through dawn's hush like arrows of melody, and you feel your pulse synchronize with their song, your breath expanding and contracting in time with each distant squawk and trill. You sense a presence behind you and turn to glimpse a row of low-roofed shrines lined along a colonnade, their columns entwined with painted lotus vines whose pigments have faded to ghostly pastel, traces of coral reds and deep indigos worn by sun and sand, revealing only whispers of the artisan's original vision. You step beneath the colonnade's shade, and the temperature shifts as slanted light filters through lattice windows, casting intricate patterns on the smooth floor. The stone beneath your feet is polished, cool enough to still the warmth of dawn that lingers on your skin, and you move deliberately between columns, letting your fingertips drift across carved reliefs depicting lotus blossoms unfurling from the grasp of the Nile, each image a frozen moment of divine revelation. You pause before one relief where a goddess kneels, supporting a giant lotus above her head like a living canopy, and you feel an ache of longing, as though you, too, wish to bear such a burden of sacred beauty, to hold the world aloft on fragile petals. But the reverence here is not for human pride, it is humility before mystery, a reminder that even mightiest kings kneel before the river's gift of life, that every crown bears the scent of lotus's soft fragrance. You step back into the open air, and the sun's light now pours down in warmth that kisses your shoulders, a slow crescendo of heat that coaxes your skin from cool to gentle warmth. You glance once more at the floating blossoms and see how some have begun to close, petals folding inward as though preparing for a slumber beneath the water's embrace. The pace of their bloom mirrors your own awareness, a slow awakening to the day's fullness. Yet an echo of rest that beckons you still. You feel your heart soften, your mind's edges blurring like watercolors bleeding together. And you sense a gentle pull urging you onward, as though the lotus's secret calls you toward hidden temples and silent chambers where scent and shadow intertwine in hushed prayer. You turn back toward the riverbank, where palms shelter a winding path carved from beaten earth. Path dappled with gentle light filtering through fronds each step, guided by faint crunch of sand and gravel beneath your sandals. The lotus fragrance lingers on the air, a subtle veil that clings to your nostrils even as you walk farther from the inlet. And you carry within you the echo of petals drifting, the memory of dew's kiss, and the quiet hymn of water weaving through lotus leaves. A pause, and you breathe once more, knowing that this moment of dawn's bloom is both an ending and a beginning, an offering to your senses that will settle like a soft prayer upon your mind as you press on toward the next chapter of this ancient land. You follow a narrow dirt track away from the river until the rise of a low embankment reveals a sprawling patchwork of rectangular fields where men and women move in slow, deliberate rhythm beneath the unrelenting sun. Their hands scooping pale clay from the earth and pressing it into rough wooden molds where wet mud bricks form, and you step forward, feeling each grain of sand crunch beneath your sandals as the heat presses gently against your skin. The air humming with the low drone of voices and the soft, wet slap of clay meeting dry wood, and you breathe in the thick, earthy scent of damp soil mingled with sweat and smoke rising from distant hearth fires. A smell that reminds you of childhood memories of fresh-cut earth, but amplified all at once by the scale of human labor before you. You approach a cluster of women huddled beneath the shade of a thatched canopy, their skirts stained ochre and brown, their arms dusted with red clay as they knead the mud into pliant slabs. And you notice how their movements flow like a practiced dance, hands cupping handfuls of earth that slip between their fingers, leaving ribbons of clay to drape like languid ribbons on the ground before being scooped back into their palms and pressed into molds that yield crisp-edged bricks. Each brick imprinted with the mark of the village overseer glyph that will identify its origin when it becomes part of a massive temple wall centuries from now. You step closer, and a woman looks up, her eyes dark and calm, and for a heartbeat you sense the weight of her gaze, as though she sees not just your body, but the spirit of a wanderer drawn by the pulse of a land forged in clay. And you feel the heat radiating from the mud beneath her hands, a gentle heat that seems to rise from the earth itself, carrying with it memories of the sun's first burn and the promise of life held in every brick's tiny, closed cell. You inhale again and taste the faint tang of water mixed with dust and aroma that clings to your nostrils even as you step back. Letting the scene unfold in wide panorama, rows of newly formed bricks lined out on coarse reed mats, glistening in pale brown like slumbering beasts, waiting for the sun to complete its transformation. You follow the line of molded bricks as they stretch across the field, each slab laid side by side in neat rows that ripple away from you to the horizon, and you feel a gentle breeze stir the air, carrying bits of straw and clay that drift like pale confetti before landing on your arms in soft flecks, coating your skin in a light film of dust that you brush away with a slow sweep of your hand. Dust motes swirling in the sunlight like tiny seeds on a breeze. The sun hovers high overhead now, its rays casting sharp, elongated shadows behind each brick shadows that dance and shift as clouds drift across the sky, blotting the sun's heat for a moment before it returns in full intensity, pressing you gently into your thoughts, urging you to slow your breath, to lengthen your exhale until it feels like a quiet prayer. You stand among these shapes of clay and feel the weight of centuries' empires built on these very bricks. Tombs raised for kings and queens, whose names now exist only on scrolls buried in tombs of other rulers, all connected by this silent chorus of sun-baked earth. You step toward an older man seated on a low stool, watching over a small kiln where a gentle flicker of flame curls from the kiln's open mouth. and you smell the sharp tang of burning reeds mingled with the sweet odor of smoky incense rolling downwind from a nearby altar, where a priest offers thanks to gods of earth and fire. The man's face is lined, his expression placid as he kneels to adjust a brick that peeks from the kiln's hearth, its edges glowing faintly like a dying ember. That brick will soon become a deeper shade of russet brown, sturdy enough to bear the weight of temple pylons and palace walls for generations. You lean in, and the heat radiates across your face, warm but not painful, reminding you of the slow nurturing of clay that must undergo this trial by fire to become something that outlives a lifetime. And you sense that this transformation mirrors your own journey each dawn, flesh born from dust, hardened by trials, yet still yielding beneath the breath of time. You notice how the kiln's bricks are arranged in tight, interlocking columns, channels for air to flow that create a quiet current of flame inside, and you almost hear the crackle of dying embers beneath the surface, a subterranean murmur that evokes both restlessness and reverence, as though the earth itself stirs and dreams of what it will become. You step back and let your fingertips drift across a row of cooled bricks, feeling their warmth fade slowly beneath your touch, and you feel each brick's slight unevenness, flickers of crack and ripple left by the sun's relentless kiss, as though the earth has spoken in subtle tongues that only the patient can discern. You wonder how many hands have touched these bricks, how many seasons of sowing and harvest have ebbed and flowed around this kiln, how many prayers pressed into this earth by parents hoping their children would know abundance. You inhale again, letting the scent of clay, smoke, and morning heat settle over your mind like a slow tide. You lean down to pick up a single brick, its weight substantial in your palm, and you feel how gravity presses into each edge, grounding the unformed potential of mud into a shape destined for something greater than its origins. And for a moment, you close your eyes, imagining lifting that brick into place at the foundation of a temple, feeling the cool shadow beneath your feet as the structure rises around you, columns spiraling toward the sun, shadows lengthening across courtyards, echoing with silent chants. You open your eyes and return the brick to its place, letting your fingers brush the rough surface one last time, and you rise slowly, your sandals sinking into sand scattered with fragments of charcoal and broken shards of clay, remnants of attempts that failed, pieces left where they fell, silent markers of journeys that ended before they began. You step away from the kiln and follow a narrow path bordered by low mud walls that lead to a cluster of small dwellings built from dried bricks homes, where families huddle under flat, reed-thatched roofs that lean low to the ground, heavy with entangled clay that has set like cement in the midday heat. You reach out to touch a wall and feel its surface sun-baked clay pressed so firmly together that a single fingertip leaves no mark. Instead, your skin senses a faint ripple where hands once pressed and molded these same bricks into place. You lean your cheek against the coolness of the wall for a heartbeat, closing your eyes as though to feel the memories embedded in these stones, laughter of children scrambling through alleys, hushed conversations exchanged over morning bread, the tearful farewell of a daughter leaving her family to serve in a distant temple, the hush that rose when news of a new pharaoh reached this village, bringing both hope and fear in equal measure. You inhale that wall's cooled warmth, earthy and soft, and you let its solidity anchor you for a heartbeat, reminding you that even the loftiest dreams must begin in clay and straw before they ascend to marble and gold. You step away and circle around to the courtyard, where a young boy carries a heavy basket of wet clay toward an empty mold, his small frame nearly swaying beneath the load. And you sense his determination in the way his eyes flare bright under the sun's glare, his arms wrapped tightly around the basket as though safeguarding a precious treasure, and you almost hear his rapid heartbeat beneath the silence, the dash of excitement that accompanies youthful toil. You watch as he carefully empties the clay into his chosen mold's fingers, dancing along the sides, smoothing each edge until the mud fills every corner, and you feel a surge of warmth for this child working under a sky that will demand so much from his body, yet offers him the chance to learn a craft that will shape the world around him. You imagine the pride he will feel when his brick emerges from the kiln, unblemished and strong, a tribute to his effort and a building block for a future not yet known. You step closer, feeling the sun's heat climb from warm to scorching, and you brush a stray lock of hair from the boy's forehead, feeling a bead of sweat travel down your palm, sticky with dust. He pauses and meets your gaze, his eyes reflecting curiosity and a flicker of shyness. And you sense an unspoken bond woven from shared breath under the same sun, from the knowledge that this land's lifeblood is molded by hands like his and yours, hands shaped by earth and guided by quiet purpose. You step back as the boy trots away toward another line of molds, and you let your gaze drift upward to where the sun now rules the sky, fierce and unwavering, its brilliance casting everything in stark relief. Shadows grow deeper, colors sharpen, and the world seems both more alive and more urgent beneath its gaze. You feel the warmth settle into your bones, a slow, mellow burn that seeps from skin to marrow, carrying with it the taste of clay dust on your tongue and the memory of the river's cool embrace from moments before. You close your eyes for a heartbeat, tilting your face toward the sky, letting each breath become a slow thread, weaving between heartbeats as you allow the sun's warmth to settle into your mind, pressing you gently into a state of quiet awareness. You hear the distant call of a horn as a caravan departs for the desert's edge, and you imagine travelers kneeling to fill their ceramic jars with water drawn from these fields, their camels' hooves stirring dust that drifts like swirling ghosts before settling in long, pale lines. You let your eyes drift open and walk along the perimeter where rows of drying bricks await the next rising sun, their surfaces so pale they seem to glow beneath a haze of heat. And you pause to let your fingertips brush the sharp corner of a newly formed brick still, damp enough to yield to gentle pressure, feeling its coolness sink through your palm like a promise that this life, though fleeting, will leave a mark. You let your gaze drift across the expanse bricks forming patterns like oversized tiles, rows of promise stretching beyond sight, each one waiting to fulfill its destiny as a building block in a temple or a palace or a humble home. You feel a tug at your heart, the awareness that even the smallest brick carries the weight of unseen stories, the hands that shaped it, the prayers whispered above it, the laughter and tears that shook the ground around it. You step away, leaving behind that silent procession of clay and sunlight. And as you walk back toward a shaded grove of palms where cool relief awaits, you carry the taste of earth on your lips, the heat of sun on your skin, and the echo of countless bricks whispering beneath your feet, each one a testament to a land that rises from dust and flame to touch the sky with dreams of dust and glory. A short, a hush, and you breathe, feeling the world shimmer around you as you step into the next chapter on this ancient path. You climb the worn sandstone steps in gentle rhythm, each footfall sending a whisper of dust drifting around your ankles as the chill of dawn still lingers in the air. And you feel the rough grain of the stone pressing against the soles of your sandals, reminding you of countless pilgrims who have ascended this sacred place for ages untold, their sandals worn thin and their hearts drawn to the horizon where sky meets golden earth. A faint glow begins to unfurl above the desert's edge, painting the sky in strokes of muted apricot and powder blue. And the wind carries with it the delicate tang of desert sand mingled with distant incense from offerings laid at the pyramid's base. You draw a slow breath, tasting that mixture of sand and resin, and you sense your heartbeat synchronize with the steady rhythm of your ascent, each step a meditation in motion, guiding you closer to a moment of revelation when the sun will crown the pyramid's summit and set the world ablaze with light. You pause mid-ascent and rest your hand against the weathered stone wall, feeling centuries of history etched into its surface, faint hieroglyphs worn by time, symbols that once proclaimed the pharaoh's divine dominion and his promise of eternal life, now softened into gentle grooves that cradle your fingertips like memories folded into stone. Your skin senses the coolness beneath your palma, cool that the sun has not yet claimed, as though the pyramid itself holds its breath in anticipation of dawn. You close your eyes for a heartbeat, letting the quiet of dawn envelop you, a silence broken only by the soft whisper of wind through chipped crevices and the distant call of a lark greeting the new day. Your breath slows as you sink into this moment between night and day, where the world seems suspended in a hush, and you feel a gentle awakening within yourself, as though the pyramid's presence stirs something ancient in your blood. You open your eyes and continue upward, each step guiding you farther from the bustle of the village below and higher into the sky's unfolding canvas. The stones beneath your feet shift from coarse sandstone to smoother limestone as you near the first landing, and you notice how the rock's surface glows faintly in the dim light, each grain catching the sky's early palette like scattered gems awaiting the sun's touch. You lift your gaze and see the pyramid's distinctive silhouette, its step tiers rising in broad platforms, each platform steeped in shadow, each shadow a gentle promise of transitions yet to come. You feel the weight of each tier beneath you, a solid reassurance that this monument has weathered millennia of wind, sand, and sun, and still stands as an enduring beacon against the desert's vast expanse. You reach the first platform and step onto a broad expanse of flat stone, the horizon stretching wide before you, a tapestry woven from undulating dunes and distant palm-fringed oases. You pause and stand erect, arms relaxed by your sides, as the sky's hues deepen into coral and rose, and you sense a warm promise beginning to unfurl just beyond the ridge. You inhale, tasting the sweetened bite of morning air laced with dust and the faintest whisper of moisture from the river miles away. Your eyes trace the horizon where the sun's crown will soon rise, a thin ribbon of fire poised to spill molten gold across the world. Yet for now, the moment remains suspended, a breath held between darkness and light. You step forward to the edge of the platform and lean against a low stone balustrade carved with chipped reliefs of priests carrying offerings, their profiles long since faded, but still echoing devotion and hope. Your fingertips brush the relief's cool surface, and you imagine the hands that once chiseled these images, chisels ringing against stone in a chorus of creation, the sharp smell of limestone dust mingling with sweat and spiced oils. You feel a subtle tremor in your palm, as though the pyramid itself hums with anticipation. A living block of earth and memory poised on the edge of dawn. You turn your gaze downward and see the village's mud brick rooftops nestling along the edge of the desert, the roofs tinted ochre and amber in the pre-dawn gloom, and you sense the world below still sleeping, waiting for the sun's call to awaken its inhabitants. You draw your gaze back to the sky, where the first tendrils of light curve upward, soft and hesitant, like a veil parting to reveal a golden promise. You feel the warmth brush your cheeks, gentle, fleeting as, if the sun arches its fingertips across the horizon to trace your face. A deep hush settles over the world, no wind, no bird call, nothing but the sound of your own breath sliding between ribs. Your chest expands, filling with the soft glow that now spreads across the sky, and you sense time itself, slow to a heartbeat. Suspended in the very moment when darkness yields to light, you step up to the next platform, each movement deliberate and unhurried, the smooth limestone beneath your feet echoing with the memory of sandal-clad pilgrims who ascended for centuries, each footfall a prayer in motion, each breath an offering to the unseen gods. You lean against the edge and let your fingers trace the carved grooves where robed figures once knelt, their hands cupped in reverence, eyes fixed on this very horizon. You sense them still, in the subtle vibrations of stone beneath your touch, and you feel a gentle sadness for those who never saw the sun rise from this vantage, their dreams sealed within these stones. Yet you also feel gratitude for their devotion, for their hands shaped this place so that you might stand here now. You inhale deeply, tasting the fine dust that drifts like mist in the soft light, and you breathe out, letting your shoulders drop, your jaw relax. You close your eyes briefly, imagining the desert stretching in all directions, an endless sea of ochre dunes tipped with pale jade, while beneath your feet lies the hidden labyrinth chambers built to cradle a king's body, corridors hewn to guide his spirit to the afterlife. You sense that beneath these stones, the pharaoh rests, his presence embedded in the earth, waiting for the sun's warmth to stir him toward rebirth. Yet here you stand, not a king, not a priest, but a lone traveler drawn by memories, echo feeling that same promise of renewal ripple through your blood. You open your eyes as the first sliver of sun peaks above the horizon, a brilliant shard of light that splits the sky into two, one side, pale and forgiving, the other ablaze with gold. You feel the pyramid stones glow in response, each face catching the sun's off-kilter rays, igniting in a crescendo of brilliance that pulses through the air like a tidal wave of warmth. You feel the light spill across your eyelids. You close them for a heartbeat, letting the glow wash over you, and when you open them, the world has transformed. The sky shimmers in hues of molten saffron and amber. The horizon ignites like a furnace, and the pyramid stands ablaze, each tier outlined in molten fire, each step a staircase of light. You lean forward, fingertips pressing into the warm stone railing, feeling heat pulse beneath your palm, as though the pyramid and the sun share a secret language, one transmitted through stone into flesh. The world below awakens. Distant birds erupt into song, their calls weaving with the soft clatter of pots and hinges as early risers begin their day. And you sense the village stirring like a giant breath exhaling its dreams. You remain still, letting the sun's rays spread across your face, warming your skin, coaxing the chill from your bones, and you feel recognition blossom within you, an understanding that this moment is both ending and beginning, that as the sun ascends, so too does your journey through this ancient land. You lift your gaze once more to the pyramid's summit and see the jagged profile of stones glowing bright enough to blind, and you feel a tingle of reverence, as though you witness not just a sunrise but a ritual older than time. You imagine priests below raising incense to honor the sun god Ra, their hands trembling as they offer fragrant smoke to the blaze above, and you sense their chants rising like incense itself, threading through the light, binding earth and sky with a promise of life renewed. You feel that promise echo within your own chest, a vow to carry this moment forward, to bear within you the memory of first light's caress and the pyramid's silent hymn. You step back from the railing and turn to follow a narrow stairway that skirts the pyramid's crown, each step steep and worn, until you reach a small platform carved into the core of stone where only the wind and sky remain. You stand at the apex, feeling the world unfurl beneath you in a breathtaking panorama, the desert's undulating dunes, the clustered palms of the Nile, the faint ribbon of water winding like silver through golden plains. And you feel vertigo sweep through you as though you float between earth and sky, tethered only by the warmth beneath your feet. A soft breeze stirs your hair, carrying with it the scent of scorched sand and distant blossoms. And you close your eyes, tilting your face upward as rays of sunlight spill across your cheeks like liquid gold. You sense the weight of history, kings, priests, laborers, wanderers rising with you, their hopes and fears echoing in the silent pulse of wind. You breathe in that pulse, letting it fill your lungs until you feel yourself swell with reverence and awe. And you exhale slowly, releasing any burden of the past, surrendering to this moment of communion with the universe. You open your eyes and gaze across the desert that stretches to the horizon in all directions, and you feel gratitude settle over you like a silken blanket. Gratitude for the stone beneath your feet, for the sun's embrace, for the voices carried in wind and dust. You sense the pyramid's purpose fulfilled, not merely as a tomb or a monument, but as a beacon guiding souls toward dawn's promise, both earthly and eternal. You step away from the summit's edge, each movement careful and deliberate, as though reluctant to leave this sanctified space, and you descend, sandals whispering against stone, each step a prayer returning you to the world below. You pause at the second platform, turning one last time to drink in the view as the sun climbs higher, warming the air until it shimmers like a mirage at the horizon. You feel the light behind your eyelids bright, unwavering, casting specks of gold across your vision, and you imagine carrying this illumination within you as you descend, a lamp to guide your path through shaded alleys and silent halls. You step down toward the first platform, where the air is slightly cooler, and you sense the day's momentum shift. Village voices grow audible, the clink of metal tools, the soft murmur of prayer, the laughter of children scurrying to greet the day. You feel drawn to return to that world of clay and river, yet you carry within you the memory of first lights blaze atop this ancient monument in ember, kindled in your heart, that flickers with promise even as you step away. You breathe once more, letting the echo of stone and sky settle in your chest, and you guide your feet down the remaining steps, each footfall light as a prayer, until you reach the base where the earth feels solid and cool beneath your feet once more. You look back up at the pyramid's stepped silhouette framed against a sky now bright and clear, and you sense that this structure, though silent and unmoving, has breathed alongside you, guiding you through this dawn's reckoning. You step onto the sand and feel each grain shift beneath your weight, carrying you forward as though in gentle insistence, urging you to continue your journey through this land of echoes and dreams, through corridors of stone and memory, where each moment unfolds like a petal, revealing the secrets of a world that lives in light, a short, a hush, and you breathe, carrying the sun's glow within you as you tread onward, toward the next chapter of this timeless dawn. You step onto a narrow stretch of sand where the Nile's gentle murmur becomes a chorus of activity, guiding your gaze toward the silhouettes of wooden feluccas bobbing like gentle spirits on dark green water. And you inhale the sharp tang of salt and fresh fish mingled with the faint aroma of riverweed and clay, an odor at once briny and earthy that fills your nostrils like an avowal of life's persistence. Then you feel the fine grains of sand shift beneath your sandals as you walk closer, the sun's warmth already seeping into your skin, pressing gently against your shoulders like a familiar embrace. You pause as a slender reed brushings your calf, and you sense the currents pull beneath the surface, carrying small ripples toward you that lap at your ankles when you dare to step forward, cool and insistent. You see a trio of fishermen standing knee-deep in water, their dark muscles rippling as they haul in a net heavy with silver-scaled tilapia, each lift a testament to centuries of practice passed from father to son, mothers whispering blessings to the river as the cast-iron weight plunges into depths unseen. You watch a lean fisherman whose arms rise and fall like rhythmic oars, fingers curling around the net's wet fibers until the steel hook at its end appears, glinting like a promise in the morning sun. And you imagine the first spark of life those fish felt when the net fell an abrupt shift from freedom to the hushed finality of harvest. You step closer until the water laps at your calves, and you feel the cool current swirl around your limbs, carrying with it fragments of reed and stray petals of lotus remnants of earlier offerings drifting downstream like silent prayers. And you watch as the fishermen spread the net across a stretch of sand that glints dark where it dips beneath the waterline. You catch the glimmer of scales as the fish thrash and shift in tangled formation, and you sense their panic even as you remain still, resisting the urge to turn away as their life ebbs along with the river's pull. You breathe in the breath of the river. You hold your breath. A moment passes. Then you exhale. The fishermen kneel and begin sorting their catch, pulling each fish from the nets, embraced with soft slaps that carry across the quiet bank. And you feel a pang of empathy stir in your chest as you watch a young boy, perhaps no older than 12, place each twitching creature into a woven basket lined with frayed papyrus reed, his hands stained with blood and slime, knuckles whitening with effort, yet his eyes glinting with pride as though he has conquered a small fragment of the Nile's bounty. You notice the braided bracelet around his wrist storied in indigo threads knotted into a protective charmand. You wonder if his family wove it when he first learned to cast a net, a safeguard against the river's capricious temperament. Yet you sense that beneath the boy's calm determination lies a flicker of dread, a knowledge that this daily rite of survival demands unwavering devotion, even as the river can shift from benevolent to savage without warning. You step back onto dry sand, letting water droplets ripple from your calves as the current recedes, and you inhale the scent of salted air mixed with smoky embers drifting from a small brazier where charcoal glows beneath a metal pot, perhaps a midday meal of fish soup waiting to be seasoned with garlic and coriander. You watch as an elder fisherman brushes his hand across his beard, wiping away stray scales that cling to his skin like silver dust. And you sense the weight of his years in the lines etched around his eyes lines, carved by wind and sun, each a testament to seasons of flood and drought, abundance and famine. And you feel reverence well within you for this man who has coaxed life from the water since his own father first guided him to the bank. He stands tall even as his shoulders stoop, a figure of patience and resilience, and you imagine how his breath must match the river's rhythm, inhaling as fish rise to the surface, exhaling as nets descend into murky depths, each breath a shared covenant between man and water. You wander farther down the bank, each step stirring a fine cloud of sand that drifts in lazy spirals before settling back to dust. And you notice a line of small canoes tethered to bent reeds, sails rolled tight for the moment, their curved hulls bobbing gently as though poised to embark at a moment's notice. You lean forward to inspect the carvings on a canoe's prow, delicate patterns of lotus petals and papyrus fronds etched into dark wood. The design worn soft by the river's caress, and you feel the grain of wood beneath your fingertips, cool and slightly damp. As though the Nile itself has claimed these vessels as its own, you imagine small squads of fishermen paddling out before dawn, their silhouettes bleeding into horizon's mist, nets unfurling like silent wings against the pale sky, hoping to capture the best yields before the sun's glare sends fish darting into shadowed currents. You sense their camaraderie in this shared enterprise, the knowing nods pass between oarsmen as they haul a catch, the silent prayers offered when a net tears unexpectedly, the quiet resignation when the river's bounty falls short of need. Life here balances on a whispered covenant. Man provides diligence. River offers sustenance, but only if respect remains unbroken. You step away from the boats and find a shallow pool etched into the sand, where water has collected into a mirrored dish, reflecting reeds that sway like silent sentinels overhead. And you bend to drink cup your palms, bring them to your lips, taste water tinged with silt and life, a sip that coaxes moisture into dry bones and sharpens senses dulled by midday heat. You pause, letting water drip across your chin, savoring the faint sweetness it carries. And you sense how the river nourishes not just body but spirit, how each drop holds within it fragments of sunrise and storms, prayers whispered in temples, laments offered by mothers who fear the river's changing moods. You stand and let water cascade from your hands as you rise, the droplets catching sunbeams and bursting into tiny prisms, and you feel gratitude bloom within you, a silent acknowledgement of the river's gift, even as you know that beneath this generosity lies a capricious force that can turn treacherous with a single swell. Your gaze drifts back to the fishermen, now sprawled on mats of woven reeds beneath a low canopy of palm fronds, their work done for the morning's tide, and you feel the warmth of midday sun pressing your shoulders down as you join them at the water's edge, squatting beside a woven basket brimming with wriggling fish that dart and flick like living torches. You reach out to touch a fish, and its skin is cool and slick beneath your palm, fins quivering as though it fights a silent battle against fate, and you feel the pulse of life quicken where you hold it, a frenetic throb that courses through its sinewy body like urgent prayer. You close your eyes and let the image of that pulse sink into your memory, as though you imprint its cadence onto your own heartbeat. Then you release the fish into a shallow basin of water, watching as it darts away to join its kin. Sensing that this act of mercy honors the river's rhythm, even as you prepare to partake in its offering, you lean back against the warm sand and prop your elbows on bent knees, eyes fixed on the braided bracelet around the young boy's wrist as he begins to gut the larger fish with a sharp stone blade, each incision precise, almost reverential, as though he seeks to preserve something more than flesh, the river's song sealed within the creature's body. You feel a tremor of empathy as you watch the life drained from the fish's eyes, and you sense a convergence of reverence and necessity without taking life. The fisherman would starve, yet each life taken bears the weight of tragedy. You breathe in the smoky aroma rising from the brazier, expecting the salt and garlic that will transform this fish into nourishment, and you feel anticipation stir despite the fish's silent sacrifice. You close your eyes for a moment, tilting your face toward the sun, letting warmth settle into the curve of your cheek as though imprinting gratitude onto your skin. You open your eyes and watch as the elder fisherman lifts a clay jar to his lips and drinks, the back of his hand wiping away a bead of sweat that glistens like a pearl in midday light. And you realize that each face here bears its own map of seasons, endured lines carved by droughts that withered fields, prayers offered when floods came too swiftly, laughter shared when the Nile's tide brought abundance. You sense their stories woven into the river's flow, their hopes threaded through every ripple that carries life to fertile plains and barren edges alike. You stand slowly, each motion measured and flowing, stepping away from the fisherman's circle until the matted reeds brush your ankles, and you feel a whisper of cool beneath your toes, where sand meets water. As though the Nile's breath follows you, even when you withdraw. You wander along the riverbank until you spot a cluster of small reeds forming a makeshift shelter, where a fisherman's wife sits peeling onions, her hands moving swift and sure as petals fall to the ground in rings of ivory. And you sense her quiet determination as she prepares the midday meal, her eyes flicking between the onions and the brazier where a pot of broth simmers, sending tendrils of steam spiraling into the heat-blurred air. You inhale the caramelized aroma of onions mingled with fish and smoke, and you feel your stomach tighten with hunger, even as you remain patient, allowing the river's rhythm to guide your breath. A short sentence, a pause. You savor the stillness. You continue downstream past a cluster of date palms where workers balance heavy sacks of salted fish on their backs, treading a path toward the village beyond. And you feel the weight of their burdens echo within your own chest, every step a testament to the river's gift and its demands. Each sack a promise of sustenance for kin, waiting in shaded courtyards. You watch as a mother lifts her skirt's hem to keep it dry and threads her way through shallow water, her child clinging to her hip, eyes wide with curiosity that mirrors a lifetime of wonder and necessity entwined. You sense the quiet pride in her posture as she carries her child and her burden with steady grace, as though both hold equal importance in this land where family and river weave the fabric of existence. You wander farther until the fisherman's net lies empty on the sand, glinting threads tangled like ephemeral lace beneath the sun's glare. And you feel a gentle melancholy ripple through you as you remember the thrashing fish and the boy's braided bracelet. You step forward to brush your fingers along a coarse fiber, feeling roughness that belies the net's delicate purpose. And you sense the weight of hands that wove each strand, women kneading papyrus and flax into thread, men knotting loops and weights into pattern, an exercise of communal devotion so that others might eat. You close your eyes and breathe in the scent of sun-warmed fiber and riverweed, and you allow your mind to drift as though carried by these strands, weaving through seasons of plenty and want, through rituals of prayer and labor, until your thoughts settle into a gentle hum. Anchored by the river's steady pulse, you open your eyes to behold the Nile stretching beyond view, a ribbon of dark green weaving through ochre sands and emerald fields. And you feel as though you have touched its pulse, carried its breath within you as surely as the fishermen carry its bounty to feed their families. You step back, letting the shifting sand cushion your heels, and you feel a final flicker of salt and dust cling to your skin, an imprint of all who have stood here before you. Hands raised in prayer or toil, hearts tuned to the river's ebb and flow. A hush arrives, a lull descends, and you breathe, carrying within you the river's whispered promise, ready to continue your journey through this ancient land of sun, water, and enduring life. A short, a hush, and you breathe. You wander from the riverbank along a narrow dirt path that winds between sun-baked mud brick homes until you arrive at a small courtyard where the scent of warm dough mingles with the sharp tang of wood smoke, and you feel the heat radiating from a low clay oven that hisses softly as steam escapes through a tiny vent, sending a delicate curl of fragrant smoke into the pale morning sky. You step onto soft straw spread across the hard-packed ground, each footfall cushioned by the dried stalks that crackle under your sandals, and you inhale deeply, tasting the sweet, yeasty aroma that promises nourishment and community, carrying memories of shared meals and whispered greetings exchanged at dawn. You pause as a young woman in a simple linen tunic lifts a wooden paddle from beside the oven and slides it beneath a freshly risen loaf. You sense the warmth beneath your palm as you brush a stray strand of hair from your face, feeling the faint grit of flour cling to your fingertips like a powdery promise. She lifts the loaf with practiced ease, the crust crackling a soft, welcoming hiss as it parts from the paddle, revealing a golden brown dome whose surface bears delicate fissures formed by the expansion of dough beneath the sun's early kiss. and you feel a sudden pang of gratitude for the simple alchemy that transforms humble grains into sustenance. You step closer to the oven's mouth and feel the rush of heat brush your cheeks as the woman sets the loaf onto a low table carved from a single acacia trunk, its surface stained with years of flour and oil. You lean forward, fingertips brushing the crust, feeling its sturdy warmth give slightly beneath your touch, before springing back as though alive, ready to yield to eager teeth. The woman smiles as you inhale the scent of baked wheat mingled with the wood's smoky sweetness, and you hear the low murmur of children giggling behind a nearby mud wall where their game of chase unfolds, their laughter echoing across the courtyard like a bright, fleeting melody that dances between wafting breadcrumbs. You sense the unity of this place, the labor of many hands, the shared loaf broken at midday, the whispered prayers of women kneading dough before the first flame touches their bread, a ritual older than memory itself, one that sustains bodies and souls in equal measure. You shift your gaze to a woven basket filled with pale, oval loaves resting on a coarse linen cloth, their tops dusted with flour like freshly fallen dew. And you notice how each loaf bears slight variations in shape and size, some rounded and plump, others elongated, edges charred by proximity to the oven's hearth, each a testament to the baker's skill and the oven's temperament. You recall that the brewer's notes speak of barley and emmer wheat harvested from nearby fields, milled into coarse flour by pounding stones, each grain ground by hand, yet refined through generations of practice until it yields just enough gluten to rise into airy perfection. You lean forward to dip your fingertip into a small bowl of olive oil seasoned with wild herbs, rosemary, thyme, and a hint of crushed garlic, then lift a sliver of warm crust to your lips, tasting the interplay of nutty grain and savory oil, a flavor that conjures the hush of dawn fields and the rhythmic thud of a millstone turning beneath an indifferent sun. You close your eyes for a heartbeat, letting the taste settle on your tongue as though imprinting this moment onto memory, then exhale slowly, feeling your shoulders loosen as though the world's burdens are suspended by the promise of each shared meal. You step back to watch an elder man in a simple tunic rake fresh embers within the oven using a long metal rake, sending sparks flickering like tiny stars across the dark interior, and you feel the residual heat hum along your arms, drawing beads of sweat across your brow even as the morning remains cool. You sense the oven's hunger, how it must be fed with just the right measure of wood, harvested from date palms and acacia trees, how its walls absorb heat until they glow faintly red within, ready to transform raw dough into golden loaves that will sustain families through blistering midday heat and moonlit prayer. You notice how the baking area is organized with quiet precision piles of straw to insulate newly baked loaves, small clay jars of salt and spiced honey for those who prefer sweetened bread, and neatly stacked bundles of reeds to line the oven's floor so that dough will not stick and char too quickly. You sense a reverence for balance here. Too much heat and loaves will burn, too little and they will remain dense, too much straw and the crust will soften, too little and the dough will collapse. Each decision made by experienced hands guided by tradition and patience rather than haste. You move to a low bench where women lean over earthen bowls, their hands working flour and water into pliant dough with rhythmic kneads that echo like distant drum beats in the courtyard's soft hush. And you feel the slow press of dough between your palms as one woman invites you to participate. You bend to rest your elbows on the bench and join her, pressing your fingers into a mound of dough that feels cool and supple beneath your touch, the texture shifting between fine granules of flour and slick moisture that yields gradually as you fold and press. You notice how her fingers move with effortless grace, stretching the dough until it forms a smooth, elastic ball, her hands dusted with flour, knuckles white, yet steady and sure. You sense the history in her movements, passed from mother to daughter, from grandmother to granddaughter, a quiet inheritance woven into every knead and fold. You close your eyes as you knead, letting the rhythm of your breath align with the motion of your hands. Inhale as you fold the dough over itself. Exhale as you press it down, feeling the dough resist and then yield beneath your fingers, as though teaching you the ancient language of bread making with every tactile lesson. You open your eyes and feel the dough's surface spring back from each press, translucent veins of gluten shimmering beneath a thin dusting of flour. And you allow the woman to guide your hands as she shapes the dough into individual loaves, pinching and rolling until each piece holds promise of its own, a silent vow to nourish bodies yet unseen. You sense the weight of community in this act, every loaf destined to be shared under thatched roofs and woven reed canopies, where men and women gather at midday to break bread and drink water flavored with mint, where children wait with eager eyes to snatch warm fragments that drip with butter and honey. Laughter rising like incense through the evening air. You feel your chest expand as you shape your final loaf, tracing a shallow slash across its top with a wooden blade, an offering of release that allows steam to escape as it bakes, each slash as meaningful as a prayer offered at dawn. You step away and watch as the woman carries a tray of shaped loaves, rows of dough lined like sleepers in a bed toward the oven's mouth. Her arms steady though the heat rises in waves around you. You follow only to the threshold, standing at the edge where warmth begins to wrap around you like a blanket, and you see how she uses a long paddle to slide each loaf onto the oven's heated floor, where they settle with a soft sigh, as though nesting. You feel the air shift as the oven's hearth hisses once more, sending ripples of heat across the courtyard, and you sense the bread's destiny unfolding within doughs, moisture bubbling beneath crust, starches converting into sugars that caramelize into golden hues, yeast's life gasping its final breaths as the loaf ascends from humble paste to nourishing staple. You let the moment linger, stepping back so that children playing nearby stumble to watch the rising heat flicker against the oven's clay fade, eyes reflecting the light as though they glimpse the alchemy of transformation itself. You wander to a low stool where an elder woman sits weaving baskets from slender reeds gathered at dawn, her fingers twisting and looping with deliberate care. You sense her quiet authority, how her hands, though calloused by labor, move with gentle precision, each basket destined to cradle loaves once they emerge from the oven, carrying warmth to homes where smoke tends hearth fires and stories drift through dimly lit rooms. You watch as she lifts a near-finished basket and sets it beside a clay jar of salted butter, and you imagine how soon the first loaves will arrive, trailing steam that curls like morning mist, and how families inside will gather to break bread in unity, breaking crusts to reveal soft crumb, dipping fragments into olive oil and honey, offering thanks for simple abundance. You feel anticipation rise within you as though you wait to join that circle, to taste bread still warm, to feel laughter ring beneath woven canopies, while children dart between legs in search of crumbs. A hush, a breath. You let the anticipation settle in your chest like a folded map, marking the path of shared memories yet to unfold. You step back toward the oven just as the woman ushers her final loaves through the scorching cave, and you sense the oven's hunger sated for now, its interior darkening at the edges where coals cool to embers. The courtyard falls to a gentle hush as everyone steps aside, and you feel the moment stretch a pregnant silence pregnant with warmth, until a soft crack cracks the stillness the first loaf emerges. Lifted on the paddle and set into a basket, its crust glowing like a captured sunrise. You step forward to brush your fingertips across that crust one more time, feeling the faint vibration of baking that hums beneath your touch, and you breathe in the mingled scents of charred straw, sweet honey, and wheat's earthy perfume, letting them settle into your senses like a gentle hymn. The baker places a fresh loaf into your hands, and you feel its weight warm and reassuring against your palms, a tactile vow of comfort and sustenance you will carry with you into the day's unfolding pages. You turn away from the oven and wander through the courtyard, each step stirring grains of straw that drift in lazy spirals before settling again, and you inhale once more, tasting bread's promise on your lips even before you bring it to your mouth. You bite into the crust, hearing a soft crack as your teeth break through, and you taste the tender crumb beneath it, a pillowy hush of warmth, subtle sweetness, and grain's quiet richness, and you close your eyes, letting the flavor dissolve across your tongue like a last, gentle caress before sleep. You chew slowly, tasting the nuanced interplay of ash's faint bitterness and honey's golden sweetness, feeling the bread's warmth spread through your chest like a kind benediction, a short, a breath, and you let the courtyard's murmur, the children's laughter, the distant clang of a lute, the soft coo of a pigeon taking wing wash over you like a calm wave, carrying you deeper into this ancient rhythm where the making of bread becomes a prayer offered to earth and sky, a reminder of life's simple miracle unfolding in each golden slice. A hush, and you breathe, carrying the taste of dawn's loaf within you as you drift onward through the day's gentle unfolding. A short, a hush, and you breathe. You step from the narrow lane of mud brick homes into a broad, dusty square where the ground is covered in fine, pale sand that shifts beneath your sandals like a warm sigh, and you sense a symphony of voices rising in layered whispers as merchants call out their wares, each syllable woven with the cadence of haggling and hope. You inhale the mingled scents of dried fish, baled papyrus, spiced incense, and fresh dates, a heady tapestry of aromas that clings to your senses as though the air itself is alive with commerce and history. Stalls of rough-hewn wooden planks and reed mats line the square, their shadows flickering beneath a blazing sun that casts sharp contrasts between light and shade, illuminating bright bursts of dyed linen, glinting bronze trinkets, and turquoise beads that catch your eye like fragments of sky fallen upon the sand. You step forward, feeling each grain compress beneath your weight as you navigate through a narrow corridor where a vendor crouches behind a low table, displaying bundles of papyrus, their layered sheets pale as clouds and edged with fibrous veins that tremble in the breeze. You lean closer to touch a sheet, its surface cool and slightly rough beneath your fingertips, a tactile echo of the river's whisper. A memory pressed between fibers, waiting to become the vessel for sacred words or royal decrees. A short sentence, a hush, you breathe, you draw back and allow yourself to be carried along by the flow of the crowd. Each step a gentle nudge against fellow travelers, and you feel the energy of exchange, where value is measured not only in silver deben, but in trust and reputation. Close by, a basket brims with pods of dried hennets, powdery scent, sweet and earthy, while a small child juggles clay figurines shaped like ibis and crocodile, balancing them on his palm with wide-eyed concentration. His mother stands nearby, arms crossed over her chest, her eyes stern yet proud, as though this marketplace is both her livelihood and her classroom. You watch as she dips a finger into a small clay bowl of henna paste and swirls it into delicate patterns on her son's forearm, an emblem of protection passed down through generations, then glances at you as though inviting you to witness this moment of quiet devotion beneath the clamorous bustle. You feel a flicker of empathy for her, for each merchant here has carved out a niche in this crowded tapestry of trade, offering wares shaped by seasons of labor and the kiss of sun and soil. You step farther into the square, and your attention shifts to a trove of leather pouches sewn from water, buffalo hide blackened and polished until they gleam like dark onyx pouch, tied with a slender reed cord and filled with either frankincense, myrrh, or the rare scent of juniper berries transported from distant hills. The leathery musk rises as you pass, and you sense how these perfumes once signaled allegiance to gods and rulers, their smoke curling upward in temple chambers like supplications ascending to the sky. A vendor sits cross-legged behind this display, his face shadowed by a wide-brimmed straw hat, fingers deftly tying bundles of reeds into small brooms used to sweep temple floors. You reach to touch the bristles, feeling rough fibers that whisper of desert grasses long dried beneath the sun's fierce glare. He meets your gaze with a subtle nod, then raises a small wooden tablet carved with the name of a pharaoh, offering price etched in ink made from soot and gum. Arabic, and you nod in return, acknowledging that here, even the simplest tool carries the imprint of authority and faith. You wander past a row of clay amphorae stacked in neat pyramids, their bulbous bellies painted with bands of red and brown slip, thin spouts sealed with wax, ready to hold oil, wine, or scented water. You tilt your head and inhale the faint, vinegary note of fermentation drifting from a broken seal on one jar. And you imagine the labor of grape harvesters who trod vineyards at dawn, their feet crushing grapes while cidering songs rose over gentle hills. You want to taste that wine, its sizzle on your tongue, but you remain a spectator, standing in this cocoon of scent and sound, letting the marketplace's pulse guide your heart. A vendor of metalware spreads a woven mat before you, displaying polished bronze mirrors so smooth you can almost see your reflection in them, skeleton-handled blades for sharpening reeds, small silver earrings shaped like lotus buds, and copper anklets whose jingles would accompany dancers in desert courts. You lift a mirror and bring it close to your face, feeling the cool metal against your cheek. Your eyes trace the reflection of the square behind you, dust swirling around your sandals, rippling shadows cast by woven mats. Faces both curious and watchful, mirrored back at you as though the fairground itself gazes upon your presence with silent intrigue. You set the mirror aside and step further, where baskets brimming with dates glisten in clusters of deep amber and mahogany, their flesh yielding to a gentle squeeze that releases a syrupy sweetness reminiscent of honey drizzled over fresh bread. You reach out to pluck a single date, tasting its sweet flesh even before you part it between your teeth, and you close your eyes as the flavor blooms across your tongue-rich, heady, sun-warmed, carrying within it whispers of orchards shaded by palm fronds, of laborers beneath azure skies, of ceremonies held beneath star-speckled heavens. You exhale, letting the sweetness settle in your chest like a benediction, and you sense gratitude that even here, amid the clamor of commerce, life's simplest pleasures, fruit, grain, water, are offered freely. Bridging the gap between stranger and friend, you step away from the fruit stand and find a cluster of wicker baskets brimming with small pottery vessels, each vessel glazed in hues of falcon blue or deep saffron, their surfaces etched with swirling patterns that mimic the curl of reed fronds. You lift a vessel and feel its rounded weight in your palm, sensing the potter's hands that shape the clay, kneading, coaxing, smoothing until this object emerged from the wheel, fired in the glow of crackling coals until its colors fused like dreams sealed beneath enamel. You hold the vessel close to your ear, as though listening for a heartbeat, and hear only the marketplace's hum voices rising and falling, the clatter of pottery rattling as someone steps too close, the distant bleat of a goat tethered beyond a reed fence. Yet you feel the vessel's presence resonate within you, a silent reminder that artistry and function converge here in every vessel, every tool, every woven mat. You shift your gaze to a truss of fresh onions piled high in a low reed basket, their papery skins gleaming pale gold beneath the sun, and you catch the sharp, acrid scent as a blade slices through layers, releasing a perfume that stings your nostrils and draws tears to your eyes even as you inhale deeply. You watch a young girl, her hair knotted in a simple braid, slice onions with quick precision, her small fingers steady despite the tears that bead at the corners of her eyes. You wonder if she has learned not to flinch from this ritual, if her ancestors taught her to honor the tearful promise of flavor well before they offered her first taste of spice stew. A vendor gestures for you to taste a sliver of onion fried in a shallow pot of oil, crisp and slightly charred around the edges, and you accept. But instead of biting, you close your eyes, pressing it to your lips so that the whisper of sweetness beneath its heat lingers there, a subtle revelation that even pungent tear inducers can yield unexpected tenderness beneath the knife's bite. You turn away and notice a narrow alley between two stalls, its entrance framed by bundles of drying fish hung from thin cords. You step into this alley and feel the scent shift, heavy with brine, musk, and a faint touch of rot. Yet beneath that layer of decay lies the promise of preserved sustenance, the knowledge that these fish will be gutted, salted, and hung until their flavor becomes as potent as the land's own sweat. You step through the curtain of fish and emerge into a small pocket of shade where women sit on low stools, grinding spices with stone mortars, coriander seeds crushed into powder that flits into the air like gilded dust. cumin releasing an earthy warmth, coriander releasing citrusy tang. A silent symphony of flavor that will coalesce into the heart of countless stews. You lean close to inhale the bouquet of spice, feeling the warmth crawl through your nostrils like a gentle flame. And you sense that these women carry within their hands the alchemy of transformation, raw seed to fragrant powder, barren fields to fertile gardens, grain to nourishing bread. You close your eyes, letting the scents swirl around you like incense, until all you perceive is the pulse of earth and sun rising from mortar to mind. A short sentence, a hush. You breathe. You step back into the main square just as a caravan of camels laden with bundles of papyrus sheets arrives at the edge of the sand, their mahogany hides dappled with sweat beneath woven blankets of bright hues. You stand at a respectful distance, feeling the ground tremble with their steps, hearing their low grunts as they kneel to allow the weight of their burdens to settle. You watch as men lead them toward a grouping of merchants waiting to inspect the papyrus, each bundle unwrapped with care, fibers unfurled to reveal the promise of scrolls destined for scribes' hands. You feel a hum of reverence ripple through your chest as you imagine those scrolls cradling sacred hymns, legal codes, and royal edicts words that will echo across generations, carried on the smallest whisper of reed pressed into papyrus's grain. You sense the shared heartbeat of commerce and culture, how trade here is more than exchange of goods. It is exchange of knowledge, of faith, of identity. You step away, carrying within you the marketplace's woven current, the scent of spices, the hum of voices, the glitter of beads, the warmth of bread, the quiet reverence for papyrus, and you feel each grain of sand beneath your feet imprint a memory onto your souls. You wander toward a small shrine at the square's far edge, where an alabaster basin holds water, offered by passing travelers. You dip your palm into its cool surface and bring it to your lips, tasting the river's echo once more, a final benediction before you move on. You step away from the shrine and let the marketplace's chorus recede behind you, carried on the wind as you follow a narrow path veering toward palm-shaded alleys, lantern-lit tombs, and whispered dreams carved into stone. A short pause, a breath, and you carry the marketplace's pulse within you as you press onward into the next chapter of this timeless tapestry. You step into a shaded courtyard, hidden behind high mud brick walls, where the heat of the midday sun is softened by the lean shadows of date palms. And you feel the cool earth beneath your sandals shift as you walk toward a low row of limestone blocks, each one hewn from quarries upriver and resting like silent monoliths awaiting transformation. The air alive with the rhythmic tap of hammer on stone, echoing like distant thunder. You breathe in the dusty scent of crushed rock, mingled with the faint sweetness of beeswax used to polish surfaces. And you sense the pulse of centuries as skilled hands coax visions into being, turning raw limestone into carved reliefs that will endure long after voices fade. You draw closer until the shadow of an artisan falls over you, and you see him crouch beside a broad slab, his linen tunic dusted with white powder, each breath he exhales carrying flecks of stone that dance around his face like ephemeral fireflies. His wrist moves with measured precision as he guides a simple wooden mallet, sending each tap of the pointed chisel singing against the stone's surface, and you feel the reverberation beneath your fingertips when you trace a carved groove, a shallow channel that will become the outline of a deity's serene profile, or a lotus blossom unfurling in silent devotion. You lean forward, placing a single hand upon the cool limestone, feeling its rough-grained tiny pocked hollows where stone has flaked beneath harder blow, each one a testament to the artisan's patience and vision. You taste dust on your tongue, faint and gritty, carried by a breeze that slips between date palms overhead, rustling leaves in a soft hush. The artisan cups his palm around a slender chisel, its tip glinting in the filtered light, and braces it against a carved guideline he drew at dawn with red ochre. You watch as he raises the mallet, pauses, and then strikes with deliberate force, sending a small flake of stone away from the surface, a silent fragment of what will become a hieroglyph's sacred geometry. You feel the vibration under your palm as a new cusp emerges, as though the stone itself breathes beneath your touch, releasing trapped memories of the earth that birthed it. and the sun that baked it to sturdy form. You close your eyes for a heartbeat, letting the cadence of tap, tap, tap settle into your bones like a slow heartbeat, syncing your breath with the artisan's measured rhythm. You open your eyes and step closer, until the artisan lifts his gaze to acknowledge you with a nod that speaks of both welcome and concentration. And you sense a silent invitation to witness this act of creation, to behold how raw stone yields to vision and labor until names and stories take form in chiseled lines. You draw a slow breath, tasting limestone's faint chalkiness mingled with beeswax, subtle sweetness. And you note how the chisel's tip cuts narrower and shallower as fine details emerge. Strands of a god's braided beard, the curve of a priestess, slender fingers cradling an offering, the sensuous swell of a lotus petal unveiling hidden beauty. Each stroke is a prayer, no louder than a whisper, yet it echoes in your mind as though chiseled into memory itself. Each fragment of stone, a small offering to the gods that will inhabit these carved chambers once complete. You step around to examine a partially finished panel where a parade of figures begins to emerge, a pharaoh standing tall, eyes cast skyward, arms raised in tribute to Ra. Behind him, attendants bearing jars of scented oils, their bodies draped in linen so fine that you almost perceive the weave's texture beneath stone. At their feet, sacred bulls and jackals carved in gentle relief, ears poised, tails flicked like silent tendrils of destiny. You feel the curve of the panel's surface beneath your fingers, smooth in places where the artisan's pointed tool has gently rubbed away rough edges. Rough where hammer met stone in a raw embrace. And you sense the living presence of the story, unfolding a ritual procession that has traveled through time, from mouth to ear to chisel. Until now, it stands frozen in stone, each line a voice calling across centuries. You draw a breath and lower yourself to a low stool beside the artisan, observing as he reaches into a shallow trough of water and dips a cloth into the cool liquid, then wipes the panel's surface to sweep away stone dust that hovers like pale mist. You inhale the fresh scent of water mingled with limestone's earthy perfume, and you sense how this act of cleansing transforms the rough panel into a field of possibilities, each wiped surface revealing new contours where shadows pool and highlights gleam. The artisan sets the cloth aside and selects a finer chisel, its tip narrower and sharper, and resumes his work. Each strike softer, precise, coaxing hidden details from the stone as though it were flesh willing to reveal its secrets beneath gentle touch. You lean forward, fingertips grazing the cool stone, feeling the subtle undulations where his hand has opened a shallow vessel in relief, an offering bowl carved so delicately that you imagine incense smoke once curled from it. Aromatic tendrils rising to lips unseen. A short sentence, a hush. You breathe. You rise slowly and step back, your eyes tracing the newly revealed glyphs that circle a pharaoh's name. Each symbol Ujjat I, Ankh's, water ripples setched so crisply that you almost feel their meaning pressing against your senses. Protection, life, renewal. You sense the glyph's power as though they hum beneath your gaze, each carved stroke a conduit to divine presence. You lean in to watch as the artisan dips his palm into a bowl of crushed red ochre and smudges pigments into grooves he polished at dawn, the pigment adhering to the stones, crevices like blood-tracing memory. And you breathe in the warm, metallic scent of iron-laden pigment, mingling with dust and sweat. You notice how he lifts his chisel again to clean a line once swept with color each stroke, revealing an outline that will guide painters when the time comes to bring these figures to vivid life. Their robes adorned in lapis lazuli and gold, their skin painted in warm ochre and sun-kissed tan. You feel anticipation shiver through you at the promise of color yet to come, at the knowledge that these carved forms will eventually blossom into brilliant vibrancy, as though the gods themselves will emerge from stone to walk once more beneath desert skies. You step farther back, letting your gaze drift to another workbench nearby where a young apprentice hunches over a smaller block of limestone, his lips parted in concentration as he clutches a slender mallet in one hand and a tiny chisel in the other. and you sense his excitement despite the dust clinging to his hair and the sweat tracing rivulets down his temples. He is carving a miniature version of a temple doorway, each keystone held aloft in miniature relief. Each column fluted with fins so slender, you imagine they might shatter beneath a single misstep. You crouch beside him and watch as he carefully eases away a floppy sliver of stone, creating depth behind a row of carved lotus buds. You inhale the scent of stone dust, sweetened by his effort, and you feel the labor's thrill to coax meaning from rock, one fragment at a time, until the world shifts from silence to story. You sense his breath catch as his chisel catches a grain wrong, sending a small chip flying, and you feel his heart lurch with regret, but he lifts his gaze to meet yours, and you see resolve reflected in his eyes, a vow to steady his hand and continue until his vision stands unmarred. You stand and turn your gaze toward a cool, dimly lit chamber where finished reliefs await installation, and you feel the temperature drop as you step inside, the air thick with the scent of beeswax and preserved resin used to seal the stone for centuries. And you note how shadows gather in corners where intricate carvings of goddesses and kings whisper of past lives. Each panel rests on a low pedestal, its surface gleaming where artisans have rubbed it smooth. And you sense the weight of history in these pieces. A demolished temple once stood here, its stones scattered until craftsmen gathered each fragment and set it to be reborn. You draw close to a depiction of Mot, her ostrich-feathered crown poised in gentle balance, wings folded behind her back, and you feel her silent authority radiate from the cold stone, her cheeks carved with a serene calm that speaks of cosmic order. Even as history's storms raged around her, you touch her feather's carved tip, feeling the minute chiseled lines that mimic softness, and you sense a hush settle over your mind, as though the world narrows to this single moment of reverence. You step out of the chamber and into a narrow hallway lit by small oil lamps flickering against carved niches, the amber glow catching dust motes that drift like ghosts through the air. And you inhale the murmur of distant footsteps, other artisans moving between workbenches, their voices low murmurs of prayer and instruction. You pause at a carved doorway where a master artisan has inscribed a brief dedication to Thoth, god of wisdom, his name etched in raised hieroglyphs glowing faintly in the lamplight. And you sense an invocation pressed into stone, a plea for steady hands and inspired vision, a vow that what is carved here will guide souls toward knowledge long after flesh returns to dust. You step through the doorway and feel the cool rush of air guiding you out into a small courtyard lined with stone benches, each one carved with inscriptions that recite the pharaohs' lineage and triumphs. And you stand between these benches, feeling the weight of their stories settle around you like a cloak. You follow a narrow path of stone fragments set into sand, your footsteps stirring fine dust that drifts toward the sky, and you sense the void between each step, silence pregnant with possibility. You pause to watch as the artisan from before returns to his bench, selecting a fresh block of limestone whose surface is unmarred save for a faint pencil outline of a royal profile. You inhale the cool scent of untouched stone, a promise unsoiled by hammer or chisel, and you feel excitement flutter like a latent heartbeat. Soon this blank canvas will yield to form, name, and legacy. You step closer once more, hands brushing coarse fabric of your tunic as you crouch beside him, and you watch as he draws a deeper line in red ochre, mapping the curve of the pharaoh's chin, the slope of his nose, the regal tilt of his crown, each stroke confident and sweeping. You feel the heartbeat of inspiration echo in your chest, sharing its cadence with his as he lifts his chisel and begins the first tap, a sound that echoes like a promise through the courtyard that this land's stories will endure, carved into stone by hands willing to touch eternity. You rise slowly, stepping back until the sunlit courtyard frames the artisan and his stone, and you feel the day's heat settle into your skin like softened gold. You inhale the mingled scents of limestone dust, beeswax, wood smoke, and resin, and you close your eyes for a moment, letting those fragrances weave into your senses as though stitching you into the tapestry of labor and devotion. You open your eyes and watch the chisel's tip rise and fall in a steady rhythm, each tap a dialogue between imagination and matter. And you sense that in this simple rhythm lies a truth older than memory, that creation demands patience, humility, and reverence for what lies hidden within each block of stone. A short sentence, a hush, you breathe, carrying within you the echo of chisel on limestone as you step toward the next chapter of this ancient land. You step quietly through an arched temple entrance where cool shadow wraps around you like a gentle cloak, and you feel the air shift as you pass beneath a lintel carved with faded glyphs that whisper of ancient devotion. The flat stone beneath your sandals cool and smooth from untold generations of footsteps, while your nostrils fill with a heady perfume of burning incense and sweet, resinous amber that drifts through the soaring columns like a slow, sacred tide. You inhale deeply, tasting saffron mingled with smoke on your tongue, and you sense every breath drawing you deeper into this hushed sanctuary where time moves in measured heartbeats rather than rushing tides. And the world outside, sunlit sands, bustling market, river's murmur fades until only this fragrant hush remains. You pause beneath an oil lamp, flickering golden against shadowed walls, its light dancing across gilded reliefs of winged deities bearing offerings. And you feel your chest soften as though each exhale releases a tender surrender to this moment of quiet wonder, a silent vow that here, within these stones, your spirit might find a thread of something ancient and unbroken. A short sentence, a breath. You sense the sacred. You follow a narrow aisle between towering twin columns engraved with lotus vines and ankhs until you reach a low dais where a hooded priest stands before a bronze censer that hangs from 3 slender chains. You see the ember within glow like a hidden star, sending plumes of fragrant smoke curling upward in slow spirals that brush the ceiling and drift down in ribbons like ghostly veils. And you feel the gentle warmth press against your skin, a subtle caress that speaks of sacrifices offered and prayers spoken by voices long vanished. The priest, his robes a deep indigo streaked with gold, his feet bare upon the cool stone, moves with deliberate grace as he lifts the censer and shifts its angle, causing the smoke to swirl in a new pattern that dances toward a carved relief of Isis cradling her divine son. You step forward until the smoke brushes against your face, delicate tendrils brushing your cheeks like brushstrokes, and you catch the amber's sweetness mingled with frankincense's resinous bite and aroma so vivid it feels as though it seeps into your lungs and lodges there, weaving into the very rhythm of your breath. You sense the priest chant, beginning then, a low, resonant hum that vibrates through the chamber like a distant echo of creation, each syllable carved from ancient tongues and offered as tribute to gods who dwell in light beyond sight. And you feel your heartbeat slow as your chest expands and contracts in time with the chant, each hum a thread tying your awareness to this eternal pulse. You move closer and see the priest's weathered hands, veins prominent beneath pale skin, guiding the chains so that the censer swings in wide, controlled arcs, each swing sending fresh cascades of incense smoke toward a pair of alabaster bowls filled with crushed amber pearls that gleam like molten gold in the lamp's light. You hear the soft rattle of beads as he dips a slender tongs into the bowl, lifting handfuls of amber that he scatters into the censer's hot coals with a faint hiss that crackles like cooled lava. And you feel a surge of warmth as the amber bursts into fragrant flame, thick smoke billowing upward in clouds that obscure the reliefs until only their gilded outlines glint through amber haze. And you sense yourself drawn into this maelstrom of scent and shadow, as though the incense calls you to witness a world beyond time's edge. You close your eyes for a heartbeat, letting the smoke swirl around your senses until the sacred hush magnifies the creak of sandal straps echoing against stone, the soft scrape of chains as the censer swings, the priest's chant rising in cadence as though weaving an invisible tapestry between earth and sky. And you feel your mind's edges blurt, thoughts drifting like floating embers, until all that remains is this fragrant hush and the muted glow of lamp against limestone. You open your eyes and step forward until the censer's chains brush your fingertips, feeling the gentle pull of the bronze links beneath your touch, cool where they have slipped through the priest's hands, warm where fire's faint echo lingers. And you sense this object holds more than metal and chain. It holds centuries of devotion. Every ember, a memory of offering. Every wisp of smoke, the echo of 1,000 whispered supplications. You draw back so that the smoke drifts overhead, following slender columns carved with hieroglyphs that spiral toward a vaulted ceiling painted with stars, some still bright in azure pigment. Others faded into soft indigo, reminding you that for these worshippers, night sky and sacred stone converged in a single tapestry of awe. You inhale again, letting the fragrance settle into your chest, and you imagine priests of old gathering under distant moonlight, carrying flaming braziers in silent procession, their shadows flickering across desert dunes before ascending to this hallowed hall, each step a deliberate offering of flesh and spirit to deities who shaped their destinies. You step away from the censer and follow a narrow corridor lit only by small wall brackets holding oil lamps, the amber glow pooling in dim circles that reveal carved niches housing statues of gods, Osiris seated on a carved throne, skin painted a regal green, Hathor standing with a sistrum raised to the sky, her face serene, Thoth holding stylus and palette, eyes reflecting eternal wisdom, and you feel a presence in each still form, as though each statue holds resonance, a silent echo of worshippers' prayers and songs. You pause before a statue of Anubis, his jackal head tilted as though listening, and you step forward until the lamp's glow illuminates the statue's polished obsidian eyes, and you feel a tingle trace along your spine, as though the god's watchful gaze probes the depths of your heart, discerning truth from pretense. You inhale the mingled scent of incense and amber again, imagining how it pools around these silent guardians, a veil of devotion that bridges mortal and divine. And you sense time's flow diverge, one current carrying whispers of temple chants through eternity, another moving in measured heartbeats within your own chest. A short sentence, a hush. You breathe. You continue along the corridor until you reach a small antechamber where the walls are lacquered in deep lapis and gold leaf, geometric patterns forming frames around scenes of priests offering libations beneath bending palm trees. And you feel the air grow warmer, thicker with incense haze that drifts through a small aperture high above, allowing a sliver of sunlight to pierce the gloom, forming a golden pillar where dust motes swirl like dancing sparks. You step to the edge of that shaft of light and let your fingers brush the sculpted rim of an alabaster bowl set into the floor, its surface marred by centuries of contact. A shallow depression where water once pooled as offerings to gods unseen. And you feel the coolness of the bowl bite through the incense-laden warmth, an abrupt reminder of stone's ancient solidity beneath layers of worship. You close your eyes and let your ear catch the shift in sound, the grown hush of stone corridors, the distant murmur of water trickling through a hidden channel, the faint scrape of sandalwood, offering boxes sliding across stone floors, all blending into a quiet symphony that guides you deeper. You open your eyes and step around the bowl into a small chamber where vaulted arches rise overhead, each arch carved with repeating patterns of lotus petals and papyrus fronds that taper toward a slender aperture in the ceiling. And you notice a cluster of priests kneeling before a small altar, adorned with gleaming urns of frankincense and crushed amber-each jars, lid ajar, revealing pale pearls that catch the lamp's glow like captured sunlight. One priest lowers his voice to recite an invocation, voice soft as river breeze, each syllable deliberate, measured, until you feel those words press against your skin as though forming a bridge between earth and sky. Another priest kneels and spreads a layer of charcoal across a bronze brazier, letting embers ignite until a faint red glow arises, and you watch as he lifts a small spoonful of resin and tips it into the hot coals, sending a burst of fragrant smoke curling upward in a roiling plume that fills the chamber with an almost tangible warmth, as though flame and stone conspire to envelope you in a scented cocoon where secret truths might be revealed. You banish a flicker of hesitation and step forward, joining the circle of kneeling figures until the heat radiating from the brazier warms your fingertips, and you feel the rush of reverence guiding your motion as you reach into a jar of pressed amber and lift a single pearl, its weight smooth in your palm, warming quickly as you cradle it like a small ember. You step forward until your face is illuminated by a nearby lamp, its light dancing in the censer's chains, and you lower the amber into the brazier's glowing coals, feeling the heat swirl around you like a hidden current. Lifting that pearl into flame, a hiss cracks the moment, sending a fragrant plume bursting upward, weaving around twisted stone columns until it fills every corner with golden haze. And you inhale so deeply that you taste its sweet resin on your tongue, an imprint of devotion pressed into your senses. As though memory itself has become a fragrance that lingers beyond breath. You feel your chest expand, as though the chamber's sacred air has kindled something within you. A recognition that this land's heartbeat carries on such rituals, that each wisp of incense is a thread binding mortal longing to divine promise. You kneel beside the altar, palms pressed against cool stone, and close your eyes, letting the sacred hush envelop you like a veil as you sense the priest's chant rise in a soft crescendo, voices weaving ancient melodies on waves of incense, each note carrying the weight of generations who have offered tribute here. You feel the smoke swirling through your hair, settling along your shoulders like a cloak of reverence, and you breathe in until your lungs brim with that fragrant haze. Then exhale until your chest softens, release pressing you gently towards stillness. You imagine rays of sun drifting down through the ceiling aperture, their brilliance mingling with lamps' glow to cast shifting patterns of light across lotus-carved reliefs, as though the gods themselves lean down to witness this offering, reaching fingertips of light to touch the incense's spiral. A deep hush falls, a moment unbroken by breath. Then the chamber's resonance shifts as the priest's voice descends, each intoned word a final benediction, a silent vow that these offerings will carry prayers skyward long after the embers cool. You rise slowly, knees creaking in protest, and stand within the lingering haze, feeling the chamber's warmth press against your skin as though urging you to remember this moment's hush, this swirl of saffron-sweet smoke, this golden hush that bridges mortal and divine. You step away from the altar until you stand beneath that high aperture once more, and you lift your gaze to watch dust motes drifting through the slender shaft of sunlight, each fleck illuminated like a tiny star, and you sense that this light carries secrets beyond sight, guiding you onward as you leave this sacred space. You inhale one last breath of incense and amber, letting its fragrance anchor in your mind like an echo of devotion, and you exhale slowly, surrendering to the hush. A short sentence, a hush. You breathe, a final breath, a final ember, and you move forward into the next chapter of this ancient land. You wander down a narrow pathway flanked by low mud brick walls that glow warm ochre in the late afternoon light, following the dusty track until it opens onto a broad plaza where a single towering obelisk rises skyward like a silent sentinel, its polished surface catching the sun's final rays and setting the air ablaze with molten gold. You pause at the threshold, feeling the heat of baked stone radiate through the sand beneath your sandals, and you inhale deeply, tasting the faint tang of desert dust mingled with the sweet, smoky hint of burning incense drifting from a distant shrine, as though the gods themselves breathe through this monolith. The obelisk's base is set within a square of flagstones, worn smooth by countless pilgrims who have come to witness its daily reverence. And you step forward, each footfall echoing softly against the flat stones as you draw closer to the base where carved reliefs wrap around its pedestal scenes of offerings. Priests bearing lotus blooms, and pharaohs raising their hands in silent supplication to the sun. God radiant, you trace a fingertip along one relief, feeling the stone's cool grain beneath your skin, and imagining the relief's original pigments glowing like living flame in the hands of ancient painters long since returned to dust. You inhale once more, feeling warmth climb from your chest to your cheeks as you raise your gaze upward, watching the obelisk's slender form tapering into a sharp pyramidion that pierces the sky, and you sense a hush settle around you, broken only by the soft rustle of palm fronds stirring in a gentle breeze that carries the last echoes of daylight across your skin. You step around the obelisk's base to stand in its shadow, and you feel the cool shade sweep across your shoulders like an embrace as the sun nears the horizon, casting long, elongated shadows from the monolith toward the western dunes that shimmer like gilded waves. You lean your back against the smooth stone of its base, its surface carved with hieroglyphs that ripple in columns like flowing water, and you feel the subtle grooves under your fingertips, each one a testament to the scribe's practiced hand. Each symbol, a fragment of prayer offered in silent hope. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the gentle pressure of stone cradle your spine as you breathe in the desert hush. No birdsong, no whisper of voices, only the faint rustle of robes against sand and the distant cry of a lone hawk circling high above, and you feel the world contract until all that remains is the obelisk's presence, a bridge between earth and sky, between mortal devotion and divine light. You open your eyes as the sun dips lower, its radiance deepening into molten amber and fiery rose, and you watch as the obelisk's shadow stretches toward a cluster of tabernacles where priests in saffron robes stand in silent vigil, their heads bowed, hands clasped, offering prayers for the pharaoh's well-being. The air hums with reverence, as though the very wind treads lightly here, and you sense your heart beat slow, matching its rhythm to the monolith's silent hymn. You step away from the obelisk's base and circle it, allowing each viewpoint to reveal new facets of its grandeur on one side, a relief of the pharaoh emerging from a canopy of papyrus and lotus, the sun's disk aloft on his brow, on another, a depiction of Ra's chariot blazing across the sky, horses formed from light that seems to flicker even in stone. Each panel invites reverence, as though the carvings offer you passage into a realm where sun and deity converge in a single breath. You lift a hand to shield your eyes as the sun's final rays strike the obelisk's upper surface, igniting the pyramidion in a blaze of brilliance so intense that you feel light streaming through your eyelids like molten rivers. And you exhale slowly, letting the brilliance settle into your chest as though you carry a spark within you. A hushed stillness spreads across the plaza as worshippers bow their heads, each voice stilled by the obelisk's glow, and you sense that even time itself pauses to honor this daily transformation. When stone becomes fire and evening yields to shadow, you turn to face west, where the dunes rise softly like rolling waves frozen in ochre, and you feel the horizon contract into a thin ribbon of fiery gold, murmuring promises of night. You step onto a raised platform encircling the obelisk and let your feet brush the carved edge where inscriptions list the pharaoh's titles, beloved son of Ra, he whose might shatters darkness, eternal ruler of upper and lower, and you sense each epithet's resonance echo back centuries, binding you to those who first carved these words in reverent devotion. You lean forward, fingertips brushing hieroglyphs that depict offerings of bread, beer, and incense set before the obelisk itself, and you imagine priests kneeling here, their voices rising in prayer as they beseech the gods for favor and protection, and you hear the faint echo of chants carried on desert wind, a resonance that seems to pulse beneath the stone, as though memory itself lingers within these carved grooves. You close your eyes, letting that faint echo wash over you like a gentle tide, carrying whispers of devotion and sacrifice through your senses until you feel as though you stand not merely before stone, but within a living prayer. You step away from the platform's edge and walk to where a small cluster of alabaster shabti figurines rest on a low ledge, their forms carved with meticulous detail, each a miniature servant for the pharaoh's journey in the afterlife. And you feel the alabaster's coolness beneath your palm as you lift one shabti, tracing its slender arms and crossed hands that cradle small farming implements, symbols of service that will last beyond mortal life. You sense a hush settle in your mind as you study its face, carved in the precise likeness of a mortal, yet imbued with divine purpose, and you place it gently back beside its kin, as though laying a silent offering of gratitude for the service these figurines will one day provide. You inhale the mingled scents of wood smoke from nearby offerings, dust from the windswept plaza, and the warm, resinous aroma of dried papyrus scrolls stored beneath woven reed mats. And you feel the world narrow until only this moment remains, this intersection of earth, stone, and devotion, where mortality reaches up to touch eternity. You wander to the plaza's far edge where a row of slender statues stands, each carved from pale limestone gods and goddesses in serene vigil, their forms bathed in tomb yellow, a hue that seems to glow softly as the sun's last warmth filters through the air, and you pause before a goddess of morning light, her body swathed in tight pleats that flow like rippling water, her head crowned with solar disk and uraeus. And you feel reverence rise within you as though her gaze falls upon your heart, inviting you to reflect on days, end and night's promise. You lean forward and touch the base of her statue, feeling the stones chill beneath your fingertips and the faint impressions of offerings placed here, bits of lotus, crushed alabaster, tiny pots of oil left as tributes by faithful worshippers. And you sense gratitude settle into your chest as you imagine these offerings pressed between her statue and your longing, each a silent vow for protection and renewal. You exhale slowly, letting the weight of devotion lift on your shoulders as you step back, carrying with you a spark of the goddess's grace even as you move beyond her formal gaze. You turn and walk toward a low bench carved from a single block of limestone, where temple workers sit, polishing small obelisks destined for miniature shrines, their cheeks flushed from labor, their hands steady as they swipe beeswax across polished surfaces until each small obelisk gleams like captured sun. You smile to see their quiet industry, despite the sun's retreat, and you step closer until you feel the warmth of their lamps flickering across your face, their fires stoked from charcoal that glows like smoldering ember, casting a gentle amber glow that dances across pale stone. You inhale the scent of beeswax mingled with sandalwood smoke rising from small censers set at the workers' feet. And you feel a sense of continuity pulse through you, how these small obelisks will one day stand as symbols in distant tombs, replicating this grand monolith's purpose in miniature, each a nexus between mortal and divine that will catch dawn's rays and echo rituals for those who come after. You close your eyes for a moment, letting that sense of continuity resonate through your bones, as though your own presence here links you to every craftsman, scribe, priest, and pilgrim who ever stood before this obelisk in reverence. You open your eyes as a murmur ripples through the courtyard, trumpets of bronze raised in evening chorus, their voices rising in a single note that vibrates through air and stone, as though heralding the sun's final descent and inviting the faithful to gather for prayers beneath the obelisk's shadow. You step toward the sound until you stand at the base once more, feeling the obelisk's silhouette lengthen like an ominous finger pointing toward crimson-dipped sands. And you watch as the sun's disk touches the horizon, a final sliver of light shimmering like liquid gold before slipping beneath dunes. The obelisk's pyramidion glows incandescent for a heartbeat longer, then cools to burnished bronze as day yields to dusk. And you feel the hush deepen around you, voices stilled, shadows pooling in corners, the air growing cooler as night's veil drapes across the land. A hush so profound that you hear your own heartbeat echo against stone. A hush so still that the desert breeze pauses mid-whisper. You breathe, carrying the obelisk's glow within you as darkness embraces the plaza, guiding you onward through the ancient night. A short sentence. A hush. You breathe. You step into a narrow shaft carved deep into the earth, the air shifting from desert heat to a cool hush that wraps around you like a silent shroud. And you feel the rough stone walls press close on either side as you descend a gentle incline, each footfall sending a faint echo that fades into stillness. You inhale the scent of damp limestone mingled with the tang of ancient oils, as though centuries of offerings have seeped into these stones and now rise to meet your breath. And you sense your pulse slow, drawn into this realm of shadow and echo where light itself becomes a treasure to behold. A single lantern hangs from a bent iron hook, its glass panes fogged by time and inscribed with patterns of ash that whisper of offerings long spent. And you step forward until fingertips brush the lantern's cool metal frame, feeling the ridged patina where countless hands have gripped its edges, guiding it deeper into the dark. You lift it gently and feel the warmth of the oil within radiate through your palm, a soft, comforting glow poised to unlock secrets buried in stone. You inhale again, tasting the lantern's faint sweetness, smoke preserved in oila, promise that even in this abyss, light can flourish. You lift the lantern higher, and the flame inside flickers to life, casting quivering shadows that dance across carved walls, revealing hieroglyphs that ripple in columns like sacred scripture. Each symbolank, jed pillar, eye of Horus etched with precision by hands guided by devotion, now glows softly in amber light, the edges of each groove catching lamplight like veins of promise. You lean forward until the lantern's glow pools around your feet, illuminating dusty footprints that trail deeper down this corridor, as if something or someone has passed before you, leaving a faint imprint in the silt that coats the floor. You sense a hush so profound beneath the lamplight's glow that you almost hear your heart's gentle thrum as it slows to match this silent cadence, and you feel the weight of centuries settle upon your shoulders, urging reverence as you press onward. You step along the corridor, each movement deliberate, sandals whispering against stone, until the walls widen into a small chamber whose ceiling arches overhead, its vaults carved with reliefs of winged deities bearing offerings to a king who reclines upon a lion-headed throne, each carved figure frozen in a gesture of homage. You raise the lantern until the golden glow spills across the chamber's breadth, chasing away shadows until every carved detail emerges the curve of a feathered wing, the subtle swell of a goddess's breast beneath carved linen, each crease in a divine robe capturing lamplight like liquid silk. You inhale the cool air, now redolent with the mingled scents of oil and stone, and you taste a whisper of incense lingering at the back of your throat, an echo of offerings laid upon this sacred ground eons ago. You move closer to a low alcove hewn into the wall, where a stone sarcophagus rests beneath a carved canopy of lotus and papyrus, its lid carved into the likeness of a royal figure whose closed eyes seem to stare into eternity. You step within, the lantern's glow, and feel the cool stone under your fingertips. As you trace the sarcophagus's carved contours, the broad shoulders clasped in regal repose, the hieroglyphs around his collar praising him as beloved of Amun, triumphant pharaoh who walks among gods. Each inscription etched deep enough to cradle beads of oil and dust that collect in dim recesses. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the hushed chamber embrace you, and you imagine priests kneeling before this sarcophagus in whispered chants, draping it with bands of linen soaked in fragrant oils, each gesture an offering to guide the pharaoh's spirit into the realm beyond. You open your eyes and lower the lantern until its base rests on a chipped ledge beside the sarcophagus, and you feel the heat radiate through the metal, warming the air around you as shadows retreat into distant corners. You step back to behold the chamber's full depth, carved niches lining both walls, each one containing small Shabti figurines, miniature servitors meant to serve the pharaoh in death, standing in silent vigil with crossed arms and solemn expressions, their surfaces polished smooth by centuries of torch and oil lantern alike. You inhale the scent of aged stone mingled with beeswaxes to seal funerary doors, and you sense that these Shabti, though silent, bear witness to an eternal watch, guardians of a king's soul standing ready to labor so that his spirit may rest. You approach the far corner, where a low stone bench stands beneath a niche containing painted reliefs of scenes from the Book of the Dead, a scribe's hand offering eternal life to a deceased noble, Anubis weighing a heart against a feather of Mot, Thoth inscribing divine judgment with a stylus made of gold, and you feel awe shimmer through your veins as each panel's colors faded, but still present unfurl beneath the lamplight in hues of deep azure, crimson, and lapis. You draw closer, lifting the lantern until the glow pools at the base of these reliefs, and you inhale dust motes that drift like tiny stars through the glow, carrying with them echoes of ancient prayers whispered in languages older than memory. You sense your breath slow so that each inhalation is a slow caress, a quiet meditation on this moment where light, shadow, and memory converge. You step back and turn to watch as the lantern's glow flickers across a jamb decorated with carved figures of priests and priestesses, their arms raised in offering, their faces serene beneath painted headdresses of ochre and gold. And you run your fingertips along a break where stone has chipped away, feeling the cool indent under your nail, a reminder that even the grandest carvings yield to time's gentle erosion. You sense a gentle reverence swell in your chest, a realization that these figures, though carved from rock, bear the breath of living worshippers whose hands and prayers shaped each line. You close your eyes briefly, letting the lamp's glow warm your lids, and you hear the faint hum of water dripping somewhere beyond, an echo of the Nile's pulse far above. Its life-giving current transformed here into distant trickle that connects this silent tomb to the river's ceaseless flow. You open your eyes as the lantern's light shifts, revealing the contours of a low stone door set into the chamber's back wall. Its jamb, carved with protective symbols of gods who stand watch over the pharaohs' journey beyond death. You feel a tingle of anticipation pulse through you as you step toward the door, each careful footfall stirring dust motes that drift between lantern and wall, and you sense the door's surface beneath your fingertips, the smooth patina of stone worn by countless hands touching in reverence. You breathe deeply, tasting the tang of oils that cling to the stones, grains a reminder that offerings still rise here, even as decades slip into centuries. A silent vow that devotion endures beyond flesh. You reach down and lift a seal of clay stamped with the pharaoh's cartouche broken but still warm from sealing magic, and you sense the weight of authority encoded in its cracked surface, a promise that no intruder may enter until the Ka's guardians grant passage. You close your eyes for a moment, allowing the hush to settle around you like a shroud, and you imagine the door opening to reveal a deeper chamber where mummified remains lie swathed in linen as ancient oils cling to bandages like preserved memory, where funerary goods, golden masks, jewelry, alabaster jars, all wait to accompany the pharaoh into eternity, each item echoing life's pleasures so that death yields not emptiness but continuity. You sense, within the hush, a soft exhale as though the tomb itself breathes in recognition, welcoming your presence while holding fast to its sacred stillness. You open your eyes and step back, letting the door remain sealed, a silent testament to boundaries between life and death, between mortal curiosity and divine rest. You lift the lantern and carry its glow across the chamber one last time, letting each shadow flicker behind you as you pass niches where canopic jars stand, each sealed with the head of a son of Horus, guardians of organs entrusted to the gods, their polished surfaces crowned with lids carved in shapes of baboon, jackal, falcon, and human jars, smooth alabaster cool beneath your palm when you touch it, offering a tangible connection to lives cut across time and space. You inhale the mingled scents of oil, stone, and centuries, and you feel gratitude settle in your chest like a soft hymn, gratitude for the silence that protects these remains, gratitude for the flame that unveils truths buried in darkness, and gratitude for the fragile thread that ties living breath to memory's fold. You step toward the corridor's entrance, turning for one final glance at a carved relief of the pharaoh opening his eyes to eternal dawn, rays of sun draped across his headdress like a halo of promise, and you sense his gaze follow you, a silent benediction that your presence here honors his journey and embodies reverence carried through ages. You lower the lantern's flame until it dims to a gentle ember and step onto the sloping floor, leaving the chamber's hush behind, even as you carry its echo within you, an ember of light lodged in your memory, a reminder that even in deepest shadow, devotion shines. A short sentence, a hush, and you exhale, stepping back into the world above, carrying the tomb's quiet glow within you. You step from the narrow tomb corridor into a low-ceilinged chamber where suffused twilight rests like a shroud over every carved surface, and you feel the air grow heavy with the stillness of centuries, as though the very stones have drawn breath and held it in reverent suspension. You inhale and taste the faint metallic echo of dried blood mingled with the bracing scent of natron salt, its crisp, mineral tang clinging to your tongue like a whispered oath, and you sense your heartbeat slow. Drawn into this silent time where life's final rite unfolds with precise ritual, the chamber's walls are painted in muted hues of saffron and umber, their pigments dulled by generations of incense smoke, Yet, you still discern the outlines of priests with shaved heads kneeling beside a long stone table, their hands clad in linen wraps as they guide slender bronze scalpels, each tool gleaming faintly in the lantern's glow, its surface worn smooth by countless rituals. You step forward until your fingertips brush the cool limestone slab that serves as altar, feeling its polished surface yield slightly beneath your palm, as though the stone itself acknowledges your presence. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the hush weigh upon you like a benediction, and you open them to witness the silence punctuated only by the soft hiss of oil dripping into a shallow bronze bowl. You lean closer to the slab and notice the precise arrangement of tools, a slender hook curved at the tip, a small flint knife sharpened to a fragile edge. Jars of scented oils lined in a row, each jar's stopper, bearing the engraved cartouche of a god invoked to preserve the pharaoh's essence. And you sense these objects hum with purpose, each item a conduit between mortal form and divine passage. You inhale again, tasting the remnant tang of coriander seed and cedarwood oil that clings to the air, as though this chamber has absorbed every anointing ever poured upon its stones. And you feel reverence coil within your chest like a silent drumbeat. You lower your gaze to the floor, where fine grains of natron lie in neat piles, white as desert sand, serraged to absorb moisture from flesh destined for eternity. You feel the coarse texture beneath your sandals as you step closer, kicking up a faint puff of powder that drifts like ghostly ash before settling, and you sense that this salt harvested from lake bottom carries with it the essence of purification, an alchemical promise that body and spirit may stand intact beyond mortality's threshold. You stand before a row of canopic jars carved from polished alabaster, each jar topped with a lid, shaped as the head of a protean deity, Imseti, Happy, Duamutef, and Kebesenuefand. You feel the alabaster's cool sheen beneath your fingertips as you lift one lid, breathing in its hollow recesses' faint whisper of preserved organs, each heart and liver steeped in lake salt, before being placed within these smooth vessels to endure across ages. You close your eyes briefly, envisioning the meticulous hands that cleansed and anointed each organ, wrapping them in fine linen bandages scented with myrrh, and you sense the chamber's hush deepen, as though those organs still rest within this air, waiting in silent vigil until the Ka reclaims them. A soft patter of your sandals against the stone floor, a hush. You breathe. You sense the ritual's gravity weigh upon you, an immovable presence as real as the carved stone above your head. You step around the table to the far wall, where a shallow niche holds a slender statue of Anubis, with jackal's ears tipped in gold, leaf its face serene, eyes painted in lapis that catch the lantern's glow, and you feel a silent greeting brush against your soul, as though the god himself watches over this chamber in wordless affirmation. The statue stands upon a low dais, strewn with scraps of baked papyrus inscribed in red ink, ritual spells invoking the god's protection, and you inhale the faint sweetness of resin mingled with dust, sensing how this niche once held the focus of a priest's chant as he recited incantations to guide the pharaoh's soul toward judgment and rebirth. You lift a hand to touch the statue's polished base, feeling its cool smoothness give beneath your fingertips like a promise sealed in stone. And you imagine those chants rising in a crescendo, filling this chamber with vibrations that rippled through air and flesh, binding mortal and divine in a single pulse. You step back and let your gaze sweep the chamber's length-low benches carved into the side walls, where assistants dressed in simple linen stand ready with baskets of fine linen bandages, their edges dusted white with natron. And you sense the tension in their poised readiness, each breath measured, each movement guided by time, honored precision as they await the moment when the master embalmer will begin the rite's final steps. You hear your breath echo in the hush, a shift of sand beneath your knee as you crouch to inspect a single fold of linen, its fibers still supple despite the weight of centuries, a testament to the craft that binds cloth to flesh in reverent embrace. You inhale the subtle scent of cedar oil infused into the linen, an aroma meant to honor and to purify, and you sense the reverence woven into every thread, the priest's prayers and the artisan's skill converging to craft body into vessel, ensuring the pharaoh's essence outlives time's decay. You stand and move toward the table's far end where an empty stone sarcophagus waits open in quiet expectation, its interior smooth and hollow, its lid propped against the wall like a guardian's shield. You feel a hush settle across your mind, as though the sarcophagus itself exhales, a silent promise to cradle the royal form until death yields to divine ascension. You reach out and press a palm to the cool stone within, feeling the carved channels meant to guide the pharaoh's body in perfect alignment with cosmic order, a ritual of geometry and faith. Each measurement and angle honed to ensure that the king's spirit may find the path to Osiris's realm unimpeded. You draw a breath. Tasting the chambers chill on your tongue, a damp whisper of the river's past, evoked by subterranean darkness, and you sense the stillness wrap around you like thick velvet, pressing your senses inward, inviting you to listen to the faint thrum of your lifeblood as it sinks with this solemn void. You turn and see a small stone basin embedded in the floor beside the table, its rim worn smooth, bowl-shaped to hold perfumed water used for the purification rite. You step closer and peer into its depths, where a thin film of oil floats atop clear water, reflecting pyramidal flickers of lantern light like distant stars. You dip a fingertip into the oil, feeling its slick warmth spread across your skin, and you smell its sweet fragrance, myrrh and cinnamon blended with rose petals, an aromatic echo of offerings once poured to sanctify the mortal vessel. You lift your finger to your lips and taste a faint trace of myrrh's bitterness, tinged with rose's soft sweetness, a flavor that anchors you to this ritual's flow, life's end transformed into passage. You inhale again, feeling the chamber's hush deepen as though even the air holds reverence, and you step toward the center of the room where the master embalmer kneels beside the table, his face serene beneath the lamp's glow, robes dusted with natron, and hands gloved in linen as he reaches for the flint knife, its blade sharpened to razor's edge. You watch his eyes lift to meet yours, a silent nod acknowledging your presence. Then he lowers his gaze to the table, where a carefully wrapped form, Lee's linen bandages swathed around a still figure whose identity you cannot discern. Yet you sense the weight of royalty in every carefully layered fold, as though greatness itself pulses beneath these wrappings, awaiting final rites. You swallow, feeling the salt of the chamber's stillness prick at your throat, and you lean forward, breath held, as he lifts the knife in a steady hand and begins a precise incision along the left flank, his motion deliberate, each millimeter measured to preserve every neural pathway until the soul's departure is guided with gentle respect. You step back, fingertips brushing your lips as though tasting that moment's gravity, and you hear the faint hiss of linen shifting under the blade, a sound so soft that you feel it resonate within your bones like a whispered confession. You draw a breath, inhaling the mingled scents of natron and cedar, as the embalmer draws forth viscera with a slender hook meant for tender precision. Organs placed into jars of scented oils, awaiting final placement among canopic guardians. You sense a hush so profound that a single footfall would shatter it, yet you remain still as stone, letting the flow of ritual ebb and cascade in silent waves, consciousness narrowing until only this one act remains a precise removal that honors flesh even as it transforms. You taste salt on your tongue. You breathe. A short pause. The chamber holds you like a cradle of hush. You step back and watch as assistants approach with linen bandages dampened in perfumed oil, their fingers sweeping across the embalmed form, dressing it in layers with choreography refined through generations. You sense the resinous aroma rise in thick tendrils, each breath drawing you deeper into this ceremony of transition, where flesh yields to symbolic continuity. The embalmer's voice rises in low incantation, each syllable carved in ancient tongue, calling upon Anubis to guide the pharaohs, heart through Sakhet Ara fields of reeds, so that his spirit may stand among golden tombs in endless daylight. You close your eyes, letting the cadence of chant seep into your being, a lullaby of final passing that binds you to this chamber's hush. You open your eyes to see the final bandage lie at a delicate strip, folded with care, sealed with resin that will harden like a silent vow, and you sense the chamber exhale a wave of release. as though the pharaoh's body has yielded to its new form, each curve of linen a promise of rebirth beyond the veil. You step toward the sarcophagus and watch as the embalmer lifts the wrapped form and carries it with slow reverence, arms steady as though bearing a feathered crown, toward the open coffin carved in Pharaoh's likeness, hands crossed over chest, eyes closed to mortal sight, a serene guardian awaiting passage. You feel a hush settle around you, time suspended, as the figure is lowered into place, resting upon cushions of pure linen scented with lotus attar. You feel the cool stone cradle the body, a final home crafted by hands devoted to the divine transition. You step back as the sarcophagus's lid is set into place with a soft thud, sealing the pharaoh within this subterranean womb. And you feel the chamber's air shift, heavier with both loss and promise. The embalmer raises his arms in final blessing, voice rising in a prayer that reverberates through stone vault's grant passage. Grant rebirth. You bow your head, feeling your own breath slow. Each inhalation a tender tribute. Each exhalation a release into stillness. A short sentence. A hush. The chamber's silence enfolds you. You breathe, carrying the hush within you as you step away. A pilgrim forever touched by this chamber's stillness. A final breath, a final hush, and you move onward, bearing this ritual's echo into the ages. You stand before the low dais where the sarcophagus rests, its covering shrouded in layers of linen until this moment when the high priest steps forward, robes whispering against the stone, and you feel anticipation ripple beneath your skin as he lifts the edge of the final linen fold. You inhale deeply, tasting the lingering scent of natron and cedar as the fabric slips away in one continuous motion, revealing gleaming gold that catches the torchlight like molten sunlight trapped within carved form. And you sense your breath pause, held by the sheer radiance of this unveiled masterpiece. The sarcophagus's surface shimmers with delicate relief, each facet of gold leaf hammered so thin that it shivers beneath the flicker of flame, every crease and contour catching light in 1,000 mirrored flares. You lean forward, fingertips brushing the polished lip of the opening, feeling the slight warmth where flame has kissed metal, and you imagine the artisan's hammer tapping each sheet into place, the soft metallic echo of work that spanned moonlit nights and quiet dawns. You trace your gaze along the carved image of the pharaoh on the lid, features rendered with serene precision, eyes closed in regal repose, lips curved in a subtle hint of knowing. The diadem across his brow studded with lapis lazuli and turquoise that glint amidst gilded rays radiating from his crown like haloed sunbeams. You feel a hush deepen as though the chamber itself leans in to behold this likeness brought to life. And you sense a stirring within your chest, an echo of reverence that hums against your ribs, as though the very essence of this king, long passed from mortal flesh, pulses once more beneath gold that conceals both vulnerability and grandeur. You inhale again, tasting the metallic sweetness of copper mixed with resin's dusky amber, as if the sarcophagus holds not only a body, but centuries of prayers and offerings folded into its hollow heart. And you sense every whispered invocation that guided artisans' hands at each step of its creation. You step closer, sandals whispering against the cool stone floor, and you feel the heat from nearby lamps concentrate beneath your cheeks, illuminating the sarcophagus's bas-relief scenes. On one side, the pharaoh is depicted receiving life from the gods, Osiris extending an ankh, Hathor cradling a lotus, and Thoth poised to record his name in the Book of Life. Each figure carved with such exquisite detail that you almost perceive the flutter of folds in their garments and the sparkle of precious adornments that once painted these reliefs in vivid color, now muted beneath time's gentle hush. You draw a slow breath, letting your shoulders drop, as though releasing burdens to this moment of divine contact, and you run a fingertip across the rim where gold meets painted surface, feeling the faint ridge of an engraved border that frames hieroglyphs proclaiming, "May he live for millions of years, son of Ra, king of Upper and Lower Egypt." Letters so raised that they catch candlelight and cast tiny shadows upon the gold, each symbol a doorway into the pharaoh's eternal reign. You close your eyes for a heartbeat, letting the chamber's sacred hush settle inside you like a benediction. Then open them to behold the high priest raising a bronze chalice filled with consecrated oil, its surface shimmering with hints of cinnabar and myrrh suspended in liquid. You smell the heady perfume of frankincense rising as the oil pours in a slow, continuous stream onto the sarcophagus's lid, arcing and glimmering droplets that catch the light before pooling into golden rivulets that trace carved lines. You sense the moment expand, each second stretching into eternity, as the oil's warmth seeps into gold, caressing metal and carving shapes only visible to the soul, and you breathe out, feeling every exhalation soften like a silent prayer offered at the closing of a cosmic circle, a short sentence, a breath. You sense the oil's essence mingling with your own awareness, binding you to this unveiling. You step back slightly and allow your gaze to wander upward along the walls of the chamber, now bathed in the sarcophagus's reflected glow, revealing painted scenes of celestial journeys, floating solar bark drifting across a lapis blue sky, serpents entwined around golden pylons, and stars that once twinkled in ochre fields now shimmering faintly as flecks of pigment in dim light. You feel your heartbeat steady as memory conjures the chants that once rose in unison, guide him, O Ra, into day's water. Open the gates of Sekhet Aru, grant him wings of carved gold to soar among you, each phrase echoing like footsteps on stone, the sound of voices riding incense-laced air. You sense that even the walls stand in reverence now, their painted surface aglow from the sarcophagus's radiance, as though reawakened to an ancient dialogue between earth and sky, mortal and divine. You turn back to the sarcophagus, where the golden face of the pharaoh now seems to breathe under lamplight, eyes serene yet alive, as though he stands on the threshold of two worlds, poised to step into dawn's promise. You feel a gentle tremor awaken in your chest, a recognition that this gold is not mere metal, but a conduit for transformation, a bridge between flesh and spirit, and you draw a slow breath that carries the chamber's scent, scandal soot, resin, metal into your lungs as though inhaling the essence of eternity itself. You step around the dais until you stand at the foot of the sarcophagus, where carved feet rest upon a base inscribed with protective spells, "May no foe find his path. May no thief despoil his rest. May his name endure as stars endure," and you run your hand across these engravings, feeling the smooth polish of gold juxtaposed with faint indentations where tiny flakes once chipped away. A reminder that even divine forms bear scars to weather time. You lower your gaze to a small stepped altar beside the sarcophagus's foot, where offerings await alabaster jars filled with honey, wine, and perfumed oils, each jar's surface mottled by age, yet still glinting faintly in oil lamp glow. And you sense the offering's silent vigil, each jar a promise that sustenance will accompany the pharaoh into his journey beyond. That sweetness will linger even as mortal light fades. You lean forward, fingertips brushing the rim of a honey jar, feeling its smooth coolness, and taste a bead of dark amber on your tongue, sweetness tempered by time. A folded memory of hives where bees once hum and sunlit fields where they gathered nectar. You close your eyes and let the flavor settle in your chest like a silent hymn, then open them to witness the high priest laying fresh loaves of spiced bread upon the altar, their crusts glinting faintly where honey has dripped and pooled at the edges. And you feel warmth rise beneath your collar as though gratitude blooms in your chest for this ritual's quiet generosity. You step back as two acolytes kneel and light long, slender candles that stand beside the sarcophagus, each flame sending a slender plume of smoke trailing upward to mingle with the incense still drifting from earlier offerings. And you sense these rising essences weaving a tapestry of devotion that will guide the pharaoh's spirit in the darkness beyond. You inhale the scents, sandalwood's smoky sweetness, beeswax honeyed warmth, incense's resinous bite, and feel each inhalation tether you to this chamber's sanctity. As though breathing itself becomes a sacred act, a hush deepens, a breath hovers. You sense time suspended between flame and gold. You step around to face the sarcophagus's side panel, where carved relief scenes depict the pharaoh's journey across the Duat, griffin-headed guardians parting to allow passage, lotus blossoms bursting open to reveal glowing orbs, and a fleet of celestial barks carrying the sun god's form through star-speckled bronze waters. You raise your hand until your fingertip grazes a carved lotus petal, feeling the slight sculpted vein beneath your touch. And you imagine the sculptor's vision, how he chipped away at limestone until these shapes emerge from stone as vivid as dreams. You inhale again, letting the chamber's hush envelop you, and you taste the faint hint of lotus's nectar upon your tongue, a reminder that even amidst death's stillness, life's memory endures like fragrance carried on breeze. You step back to the dais center and gaze downward at the sarcophagus's lid, where the pharaoh's hands lie crossed over his chest, holding crook and flail rendered in gold, symbols of rulership and authority that will accompany him beyond horizons. And you feel a solemn hush settle over you, as though these symbols themselves bind you to an enduring legacy. You sense your own hands grow still, as though holding invisible crook and flail, stewards of memory, entrusted with preserving this moment's sanctity. You breathe deeply, letting each exhalation soften your jaw, your shoulders, your mind, until all that remains is the sarcophagus's gentle radiance, a heart of gold at the center of this chamber's hushed symphony. You step away from the dais, sandals whispering against the stone floor, and pause just beyond the sarcophagus's glow, letting your back lean against the cool wall where carvings of protective deities rise in silent vigil. Horus with falcon head raised, Sekhmet with lioness crown bearing mace, and Thoth with ibis head, scribbling hieroglyphs that record the pharaoh's triumph, each figure carved with such precision that you feel their gaze following you even as you move, offering their silent watch. You inhale once more, tasting the blended scents of lamp oil and resin, and you close your eyes briefly, conjuring the layered chorus of chants that filled this chamber as gold first gleamed beneath chisels, as linen bandages swathed flesh in scented embrace, as offerings clinked upon this altar in promising cadence, each memory folding into the next until they form a tapestry woven of devotion, artistry, and the enduring pulse of belief. You open your eyes to watch as the high priest steps forward once more, voice rising in a final benediction. May the gates of dawn open. May his name endure beyond the morning star. May his spirit find rest in everlasting light. Each word a gentle echo that drifts upward to mingle with incense smoke, dancing amid flickering shadows as though carried by unseen wings. You bow your head, feeling the chamber's hush settle like a gentle benediction upon your brow. And you sense the sarcophagus's radiance painting your closed lids with golden warmth as though sealing memory beneath a veil of light. A short sentence, a hush. You breathe. You carry this moment within you as though cradling a single golden flake fragile, luminous, eternal as you step away from the gilded form of kings and move onward, bearing this chamber's quiet glow into the next chapter of time. You walk along a narrow causeway of sun-baked stone, where the desert wind has risen from a gentle breeze to a low hum that shakes loose specks of sand from every crevice, and you feel each grain swirl against your ankles, clinging to your sandals like living embers that hiss softly as they scrape and tumble beneath the shifting light, as though the earth itself breathes its desert breath in great, whispered gusts that brush past your skin with the dry tang of dust and sun. You pause as a distant wall of ochre haze moves across the dunes, a rolling tide of sand that blots out the horizon where sky meets earth. And you sense a hush fall over the world, an anticipatory silence pregnant with ancient memory, before the storm's first gust strikes, sending sand swirling in frayed clouds that coil around pottery shards and scrub brush like spectral dancers. A short sentence. You breathe. The hush shatters. You step forward, pressing your hand across the low wall beside the causeway, feeling warm stone slip from heat to sudden chill under your palm as wind-driven grains pelt its surface, each impact a tiny drumbeat resonating through your fingertips. and you taste grit on your lips as the first swirls of sand whiten your eyelashes, fleeting as frost that will vanish beneath the sun's relentless glare. You lean into the wind, squat low to steady yourself, and you watch a caravan of slender reeds tied at the stem's bow beneath the storm's assault, their tips whipping like frantic tongues that hiss and crackle in the thick air. And you sense your heart accelerate in time with the storm's roar, each inhalation a sharp bite of desert grit that traces the ridges of your ribs with relentless insistence. The air vibrates around you. The world contracts to this moment of sand and wind. You step back from the wall and follow a beaten path between two low dunes, each step a soft scrape as you sink ankle-deep into shifting sand, and you feel the ground beneath you give and recede, a breathing entity that alternately supports and yields as the gale roars overhead, carrying with it the faint metallic scent of heated rock and dry bone and odor older than memory. Pressing against your senses like a warning whispered across millennia, you steady your breath, inhaling through your nose despite stinging nostrils, letting the wind carve shallow caves in your lungs, where each breath echoes like a distant prayer, and you keep your shoulders low, chin tucked, as though offering only a narrow path for the storm to pass, trusting your feet to find purchase in the shifting dunes, even as the storm obscures all but the next grain swirling between your eyes. You exhale in measured release. You move forward. You round a gentle rise and see the silhouette of a solitary figure standing atop a dune, wrapped in a coarse linen shawl that flaps like ragged sails against the tempest. And you feel a pang of longing rise within you, wondering if that figure stands as sentinel or suppliant as the storm claws at their robes, tossing sand in braided eddies around their ankles as they lift one arm to shield their face from the onslaught. You sense their gaze fixed upon the wind-whipped dunes beyond, as though they peer into the storms, heart for some hidden sign. And you feel the urge to call out, to raise your voice against the gale, but you know that words here would be swallowed in a breath, a short sentence. You breathe. You reach out and place your palm against the ridge of the dune beneath you, feeling the coarse sand shift beneath your fingers as though alive, carrying warmth from sun and sting of storm in equal measure. And you wonder if the dunes themselves pulse with memory of caravans lost, of pilgrims seeking distant shrines, memories buried beneath sand until storms rise to stir them once more. You pull your shawl tighter around your face, letting only a slit for your eyes remain exposed. And you step toward that solitary figure, each footfall a battle against shifting sand that slips from your heels before you can fully bear weight. And you taste the storm's tang in every breath, metallic, bitter, ancient, and you sense the world narrow sand, wind, and the simple act of placing one foot before the other. You reach the figure and see that they stand at the edge of a small shrine built into the dunia, simple recess carved from sun-hardened clay. Its roof slanted to catch the storm's fury and channel it aside, a hollow that holds refuge for weary travelers. You feel relief pulse through you at the sight of shelter as the figure turns, revealing eyes luminous beneath wind-whipped lashes, a gaze that meets your own with a flicker of recognition, as though you share a silent bond forged in this tempest. Their voice reaches your ears in a low rasp, find shelter, a hush in their words despite the storm's roar. You step into the shrine's mouth and feel the sudden relief of still air, sand settling behind you like the closing of a door, and you inhale the faint, sweet scent of dried palm fronds woven into the roof overhead, an aroma of refuge and prayer amid chaos, while your heart pounds in your ears as though it, too, seeks sanctuary. A short sentence. You breathe. The figure guides you deeper into the niche until the thrumming gale dims to a distant rumble, and you sense the world contract to this space of stillness, walls carved with faded glyphs of protective deities, Sekhmet with lioness's head, guarding thresholds, Sobek with crocodile's visage standing watch, and Anubis poised to guide souls through darkness. You trace your fingers across one carved symbolon, Ujat, eye feeling a cool depression beneath the sand-scarred surface. A promise painted long ago with pigments worn to earthen whispers, now pressed into stone to ward off storms, both of wind and spirit. You settle against the cool back wall, sand slipping from your sandals like living threads. And you inhale the hush, tasting linen and smoke from faded offerings left on a chipped shelf, above your head small bowls of oil and crushed herbs that gather in the shrines, depths a scent of quiet devotion that contrasts with the storm's roar outside. You close your eyes for a heartbeat, letting your breathing slow as if in prayer, matching your pulse to the slow cadence of distant wind. Each gust a reminder of life's relentless motion, even amid stillness. You imagine this shrine's walls have witnessed storms of sand since the age of pyramids, storms that buffeted travelers, stung skin, and carved new dunes, yet here they stand firm, a testament to devotion etched in stone. You sense that within this hush, time itself shifts a breath long as centuries. You open your eyes and watch the storm through a narrow slit in the shrine's entrance, where sand-laden gusts whip around dunes, bending date palms to prayer, and you feel awe drift through your chest at the desert's fierce beauty. How wind sculpts dunes like ripples on water. How sand becomes both veil and revelation, sweeping away footprints and revealing hidden contours as though guiding you toward unknown paths. A hush settles. You breathe. The storm's roar becomes a distant heartbeat. You rise and step to a shallow bench carved along one wall, its smooth surface worn by travelers seeking refuge, and you feel its cool grain beneath your palm as you run a fingertip along an inscription at its edge. May this sanctuary stand until gods no longer breathe. Each glyph pressed into clay so crisply that you feel the scribe's hand reach through time, leaving a vow that this space will hold in any storm. You sense a gentle warmth press through the shrine's walls, carried from the sun's last embers trapped within clay, and you draw a slow breath, tasting relief on your tongue, a lingering sweetness after salt-laced gusts. You rest your head against the rough wall, letting the hush fold around you like a shawl, and you close your eyes, letting memory drift to the wind's first whisper, to the dunes rising in silent invitation, to voices raised in prayer that guided you here. A short sentence, a hush. You breathe. You open your eyes as the storm's roar dims further, each gust losing strength as though spent by its own fury. And you step to the threshold once more, tasting the air's dry, calm on your lips, and still rising in distant eddies, but the horizon now clear enough to see dunes rippling like waves toward a pale sky. You feel sun's warmth climb back into the air, carrying with it relief from chill of storm, and you inhale with gratitude as though tasting freedom saved from chaos. The figure emerges beside you, face lifted to wind-streaked sky, and you sense their gaze scanning dunes as though tracking wind's final retreat. And you step forward until your shoulders brush theirs, their presence a quiet affirmation of shared endurance. You step into the storm's wake and feel sand clatter across your shoulders like fragments of memory settling into place, each grain a whisper of trials overcome, traces of paths forged through shifting dunes and whispered supplications carved in stone. You rise from the shrine and follow the path beyond where the dunes slope toward an ancient causeway lined by date palms, each trunk scarred and bent as though shaped by storms many lifetimes past. And you feel gratitude ripple through your chest, gratitude for shelter offered in stilled stone, for wind that revealed new contours and tested your spirit, and for the hush held within you now like a tether to something timeless. You walk forward, feet pressing into sand molded to form by wind and sun. Let each step echo with the storm's memory, as though the desert itself speaks of resilience and surrender, of shifting sands that bury and reveal, of winds that shed and sculpt. You taste the remains of wind on your tongue, and you sense the horizon stretch wide once more, horizons beckoning with dunes and sky in seamless interplay. You inhale the subtle promise of calm as you cross into open desert, letting the hush nestle beneath your ribs. And you walk on until the dunes slope gently into a field of sun-bleached bones, half buried in pale sand remnants of beasts that met the storm's fury before. Now resting beneath dunes like memories melded to earth, and you feel a solemn reverence for life's fragile tenacity, a recognition that even in desolation, there lies a pattern of renewal as wind scatters seeds and shapes dunes into new promise. You step lightly between bone and dune, each footfall a quiet prayer, and you carry the storm's hush within you, a spark of stillness that will guide you through each shifting wind, each hidden path, each dawn beyond the horizon. A short sentence, a hush. You breathe. You step onto a terrace carved from pale limestone, high above the temple precincts at Karnak, where the air cools under a sky now deepening into indigo dusk. And you feel the stone beneath your sandals retain the day's warmth, even as the desert wind carries a chill that brushes against your skin like whispered promise. You inhale the scent of crushed lapis and crushed mortar, as if remnants of ancient artisans still linger in these stones. And you sense the hush settle around you, as though the world itself leans back to watch the heavens unfold. A short sentence, a breath. The hush deepens. You draw closer to a low wall that rims the terrace, feeling each carved block smooth grain under your palm as you lean forward, tilting your gaze upward to where the first stars emerge in cautious pinpricks of light, each one bright against the canvas of early night, and you taste the faint tang of dust on your tongue, desert sand flung skyward, and you sense your breath slow to match the stars appearing, steady and deliberate, as though time itself pauses in reverence. You close your eyes for a heartbeat, letting the hush enfold you like a veil, then open them to behold how constellations take shape. Orion's belt slanting just above the western horizon like a row of cosmic beads, Sirius gleaming low and fierce as sapphire forged by gods, and the circlet of Pleiades winking faintly as though shy to speak its ancient name. You feel awe shimmer through your chest, heartbeats lingering as though they too wish to become stars. You step back from the wall and follow a narrow pathway of flagstones that winds between slender lotus columns. Yash column, carved with faded hieroglyphs depicting celestial journeys, until you reach a small raised platform where a sandstone bench stands, its surface worn smooth by centuries of stargazers who press their palms against its edge. Seeking counsel in the heavens, you descend until your back rests against the bench, feeling its gentle slope support you as though the stone cradles every pilgrim who pauses here, and you inhale the cool air heavy with incense sent from lower temples, an aroma that coils around your senses like a sacred thread binding earth to sky. You lift one hand to brush a stray strand of hair from your cheek, feeling the wind's breath tease your fingers, and you let your gaze drift across the stars, each a story waiting to reveal itself. You sense the hush expand. You breathe. You shift your gaze downward to the stone altar beside the bench, where a weathered scroll of papyrus lies half unfurled, its edges frayed and curling under the chill of night, and you smell the faint must of aged reed mingled with faint traces of charcoal from glyphs inscribed long ago. Charts of star patterns meant to guide priests in divining omens and marking the flood's rising tide. You lean forward, fingertips brushing the scroll's surface, feeling papyrus's delicate fibers yield under gentle pressure, as though the scroll itself exhales when touched. You trace your fingertip along an inked line that curves like a river, an outline of Orion's belt linking 3 stars that once guided sailors on the Nile. And you taste the bitterness of ink mingled with age on your tongue as you imagine priests studying these markings under torchlight, their voices hushed in reverence as they trace the path of Sirius to herald the inundation that would renew their fields. A short sentence, a breath, reverence lingers. You pause to let your gaze drift from the scroll to the sky, where a new star has flared into view, its brilliance so sudden that you blink twice as though startled by its emergence, and you feel a shiver trace along your spine as though the heavens themselves speak to you in silent code. The wind shifts, carrying whispers of receding day, voices of artisans closing temple gates, the murmur of water in distant canals, and you sense the platform's stillness deepen. Every carved symbol around you poised to catch moonlight and echo prayers. You close your eyes and inhale again, tasting resin from burning incense that drifts upward from the temple below. Its scent weaving into the night air, as though forming a ribbon that connects earth and sky, present and eternal. You sense the hush expand until your chest rises and falls with the rhythm of cosmic breath. You open your eyes and reach for a small clay jar at your side, its surface etched with the image of Thoth scribe of the god synced in lapis that glints faintly under starlight. And you lift the jar's lid to reveal a shallow pool of water that mirrors the stars above like a liquid sky. You tilt the jar so that its rim catches starlight, letting the water shimmer with scattered points of light that quiver as you breathe, and you feel a ripple of wonder pass through you as though the jar holds the heavens in a palmful, each star mirrored in liquid memory. You taste the salt of petrified riverbed and evening dew mingled on your tongue, as though the water carries both flood's promise and night's revelation. You sense the hush deepen once more. You breathe. You place the jar gently back beside the bench and stretch one hand toward the sky, fingertips grazing the air as though trying to pluck a star by name. And you sense the thin veil between worlds shift beneath your touch, a tremor that resonates through air and stone as though the gods register your presence. You inhale the desert's chill, letting it caress your lungs, and you draw your gaze back to the scroll where a priest's chart depicts Canopus veering low in the south, an omen tied to harvest and long journey, its line drawn in a hand guided by devotion. Each dot a letter in a silent prayer to stars that watch over destiny. You lean forward until the scroll's edge brushes your palm, feeling the weight of centuries beneath your fingers. And you sense the scroll's promise that knowledge carved in ink on reed will outlive every mortal voice. A short sentence, a breath. Knowledge lingers. You sit with eyes tracing sky's tapestry, each breath in time with shifting constellations, feeling the hush weave around your senses like a garment that shields you from tomorrow's cares, holding you in this sacred pause between days, end and night's bloom. You let memories drift through your mind, visages of priests drilling holes in wooden star charts, nobles leaning on alabaster balconies to glimpse celestial omens, children gazing upward with wonder as men in linen cast nets by torchlight far below, and you sense an ancient rhythm pulsing through your veins, a silent hymn carried by winds that have known every prayer offered here since Karnak's first stone rose from desert's womb. You close your eyes, letting that rhythm echo in your heartbeat, and you taste the sky's salt on your tongue once more, a fleeting luxury you savor before stars shift with silent resolve. You open your eyes to see a faint glow rising over the desert's edge moons, first sliver poised to join the star, its brilliance soft as whispered vow. And you feel the hush deepen beneath that coming glow, as though night exhales a final prayer before surrendering to moon's gentle watch. You stand and draw a slow breath, letting your shoulders roll back as you sense the terrace beneath you settling back into stillness, each stone exhaling its warmth before the chill of approaching dawn. You close your eyes for a moment longer, letting the air carry the weight of every star's promise and every prayer whispered in their names. And you sense that within this hush, you carry a fragment of the heavens, pulse a spark of knowledge that will guide you beyond Karnak's walls and desert's reach. You open your eyes, stepping back from the bench until the scroll and jar rest at least an arm's length away, and you feel the platform's edge guide you toward a narrow staircase descending between lotus columns whose carved tips reach upward as though yearning for sky's secret. You lean forward, fingertips brushing a carved ankh at the staircase's entrance, feeling its cool indentation press into your palm as though offering a final benediction, life eternal, breathed into your veins by starlit grace. You descend one step at a time, each footfall echoing softly against stone, and you taste the desert's hush fading behind you like a dream dissolving under dawn's promise. A short sentence, a breath. The hush carries forth as you walk onward through Karnak's silent heart. Guided by stars, memory into the unfolding dawn, you step through a pair of massive cedar doors carved with gilded lotus motifs and enter a vaulted banquet hall where torches line walls of red granite, their flickering flames casting wavering shadows over polished marble floors that gleam like molten copper under the glow. and you feel the warm breath of spiced air brush your skin as servers weave between long tables laden with platters of roasted quail, trays of glistening dates, and bowls of crimson grapes sparkling with dew. You inhale deeply, tasting the scent of roasted fowl mingled with honeyed wine, drifting from a cluster of goblets glittering like captured rubies on a low table to your left. And you sense your heart soften as laughter ripples through the hall, chords of mirth that echo against high arches like ripples on still water. A short sentence, a breath. You feel the grandeur. You follow a perfumed breeze toward the hall's center, where a massive banquet table stretches the length of the chamber, its surface carved from a single slab of alabaster, inlaid with lapis and turquoise depicting hunting scenes beneath palms. And you notice how its edges glow soft gold where the pharaoh's emblem, soaring, falcon repeats in relief, each carving catching torchlight in mirrored flashes. You sense the weight of history pressing soft beneath your gaze as you step closer. Fingertips brushing a rim of carved lotus petals so delicate that they seem to rise from the stone. And you taste the faint sweetness of myrrh on your tongue as incense trails swirl overhead like drifting prayer. You draw in another breath, letting the hall's warmth settle into your chest, and you sense your pacing slow, spine straightening as though anticipation itself has lengthened you, guiding you toward a small dais where the pharaoh reclines on cushions of embroidered silk, his golden headdress crowned with a fearsome cobra that glints like liquid fire. You approach the dais and feel the marble floor grow warmer beneath your feet, heat rising like a gentle tide that pools around your ankles. And you inhale the scent of cinnamon and frankincense swirling about the pharaoh's court, carried on a warm current that ripples across opulent robes. You notice how courtiers cluster in small huddles along the dais's edge, their voices hushed under the pharaoh's watchful gaze. And you sense their tension dissolve as the pharaoh lifts a goblet of dark wine, its surface catching torchlight in ruby gleams, and tilts it toward his lips. A hush falls, a breath. Even the torches seem to burn softer. You step closer still, and the pharaoh's eyes find yours dark and steady, offering a nod that feels both invitation and blessing, as though you walk an honored path through millennia of tradition. You sense the weight of that nod settle in your chest like a promise, and you draw in air scented with cardamom and rose petals, tasting spice on your tongue as though memory itself rides on each breath. You kneel on a soft cushion nearby, keeping your gaze lowered as though in reverence to this moment's splendor, and you feel the pharaoh's guards shift at their posts, sandals slipping quietly against stone as they adjust their spears, ensuring no disruption will mar this feast's flow. You exhale gently, a slow release that carries your pulse back to a measured cadence, and you sense the hall's tapestry of sounds weave around you, soft laughter, the clink of goblets, murmured conversations, and a distant drumbeat that pulses like a heartbeat beneath all. You lean forward until fingertips brush a low table beside your cushion, its surface strewn with platters of roasted duck, glazed in honey and pomegranate juice, each bird poised on a bed of spiced figs and garnished with parsley. And you hear the soft rustle of linen as a server steps forward, lifting a flesh-toned amphora sealed with wax, its surface painted with vines. Anne pours wine into your waiting goblet, the liquid sloshing gently until it pools like molten garnet at the cup's base. You lift the goblet to your lips and taste warmth on your tongue, notes of cinnamon, saffron, and tart berries dancing together in layered breath that settles in your chest like a slow drum beat. And you close your eyes briefly, letting the flavor unfurl like a memory you've never known but feel you remember. A short sentence, a breath. You feel the richness. You open your eyes to see the pharaoh lean back against his cushions, his eyes glinting with mirth as servants carry forth new dishes, baskets of freshly baked flatbread topped with sesame seeds, bowls of creamy goat cheese drizzled with honey, and platters of steamed fowl wings coated in a glaze of date syrup and coriander. You inhale that aroma bread, warm from the hearth, cheese tangy and sweet, spice warming your nostrils, and you sense your senses bloom. each detail sharpening as though each flavor will imprint in memory. You taste sweetness on your tongue as you nibble a warm piece of flatbread, its crust crackling beneath your teeth, and feel satisfaction ripple through you as layers of flavor spread across your palate, grounding you in this hall's swirling grandeur. You lean back, allowing the pharaohs' laughter deep and resonant to wash over you like a wave, and you notice how courtiers respond in kind, their voices rising in a shared harmony of contentment as they lift goblets to midair, spilling drops of wine toward the pharaoh's dais in silent tribute before drinking deeply. You sense your own heart swell as you join the chorus, raising your goblet in a gentle arc before tasting wine's final notes: smoky cedar, ripe grape, hints of honey, and you feel warmth bloom in your chest as though the wine carries the very flame of sun-kissed vineyards to your bones. A short sentence, a breath, the hall's pulse becomes yours. You draw your gaze to a pair of graceful dancers who emerge from behind a colonnade, robes of sheer linen swirling around their ankles as they move in perfect sync, and you watch as their hands trace arcs in the air, wrists adorned with bracelets of gold and lapis, each movement unfolding like a slow bloom of petals. Their feet tap a steady rhythm against a small platform where musicians sit a harpist, plucking strings so delicate they hum like distant winds. A percussionist tapping on a frame drum that resonates like a heartbeat, and a flutist breathing soft notes that swirl with breath of wood and earth. You breathe in their music as though it were an incense, scents of sandalwood and cedar riding each note, and you feel the dancers' bodies pivot, backs arched, torsos unfolding in slow waves that mirror river's gentle current, their voices weaving a chant that drifts overhead like a prayer for abundance. You sense your chest rise and fall with their movement, uniting your pulse to their rhythm, each inhale a step in the dance's flow, each exhale a vow to linger in this hall's embrace. You step forward until your knees hover above the polished marble, fingertips braced on your cushion, and you watch as the pharaoh rises from his seat, sandals sliding across the floor with soft tap of ivory against stone, and you sense the hush deepen as he approaches his throne-like chair, a seat carved from golden alabaster inlaid with precious stone. He settles into its embrace, his posture regal yet relaxed, and you feel a shift in the hall's energy, as though every torch flame burns a shade brighter in response to his presence. The dancers slow, their movements tapering to a final pose, arms extended skyward, chests lifted, eyes closed to mortal sight, and a final note lingers in the air like a feather before the hush returns, pregnant with awe. You close your eyes momentarily, letting that hush settle in your mind like a blessing, then open them to witness the pharaoh raise a staff tipped with an anka symbol, glinting like liquid gold, and lightly touch the chest of the nearest dancer, his touch brief and gentle. And she bows her head in silent honor, her face serene as though touched by divine light. You tilt your gaze to see new dishes appear, platters of honeyed figs stuffed with goat cheese and wrapped in grape leaves, bowls of spiced lentils simmered in broth thick with cumin and coriander, and trays of sweet pastries filled with date paste and sprinkled with sesame seeds that glint like falling stars under torchlight. You inhale the blend of aroma-earthy lentils, sweet fig, rich honey, and your breath catches as you imagine the labor of families in distant fields, harvesting grain and figs under blazing sun before hands kneaded flour at dawn to shape dough for these pastries. You lean forward to lift a single pastry, feeling its warm crumb crumble slightly between your fingers, and you taste honey and dates-balanced sweetness woven with spices. Faint warmth, a momentary blaze of flavor that unfolds across your tongue like a slow sunrise. A short sentence, a breath. Delight settles in your chest. You step back to your cushion and glance toward a corridor where a procession of priests carries new libations, silver bowls filled with chilled pomegranate wine and goblets of cool water scented with mint leaves, each vessel gleaming under torchlight as they pass through a pair of lotus-carved pillars. You feel relief swirl through you as you sip the pomegranate wine, its tart sweetness racing across your tongue like bursting jewels, and you sense the cool waters touch on your lips as you follow with a trickle of mint-infused clarity that slides across your throat like a gentle breeze after desert heat. You close your eyes, letting those flavors imprint within you as though pledging to remember this banquet's abundance, and you breathe out, savoring the hush that trails behind each gust of flavor. You draw your gaze across the hall once more and see a cluster of high-ranking dignitaries leaning toward one another, their voices low but animated, as though they share secrets of state or trade, their garments shimmering in hues of deep indigo and crimson, embroidered with gold thread depicting sacred animals, falcons, cobras, sacred bull siege, motif a silent prayer for protection and power. You feel the weight of their presence, a reminder that even in moments of indulgence, politics and devotion interweave like threads in a tapestry. Each conversation, a strand in the kingdom's fate. You sense your own heart pulse more slowly as you watch them, recognizing that this feast's lavish display both celebrates life's abundance and affirms alliances that bind tribes and provinces under one pharaoh's rule. A short sentence, a breath. Awareness settles. You turn your attention to the high priest who stands at a small altar near the dais, lifting a censer where frankincense hisses against glowing coals, sending plumes of fragrant smoke swirling over the pharaoh's head like a halo. You inhale that smoke rich with resin's sweet bite, and you sense it carry prayers upward toward temple domes and desert skies alike. A thread of devotion woven through incense-laced air. You feel reverence simmer within you as the high priest chants a benediction, each intoned syllable vibrating through the marble floor and rising in layered echo, binding this hall's revelry to cosmic order, reminding all present that even in feasting, worship remains at the heart of celebration. You exhale slowly, letting each syllable's resonance settle like a soft blessing against your ears, and you taste incense's sweetness fading into memory's fold. You step away from your cushion and move toward a long bench at the hall's far edge, where children of nobility flare their robes in quiet games of chase between columns, their laughter a soft counterpoint to adult mirth. You watch as a small boy in linen plays with a wooden top carved in the shape of a lotus bud, spinning it across marble so it hums like a distant star, and you feel a warmth rise in your chest as you recall your own childhood's simple joys, unburdened by rank or duty, before the world's complexities claimed you. A short sentence, a breath. Nostalgia glimmers. You shift and kneel beside the boy, fingertips brushing the carved lotus top, feeling its smooth grain beneath your palm, and you sense a shared delight as he grins up at you, eyes bright with the joy of spinning something alive against still stone. He extends his hand, and you place your palm atop his, steadying the spin until the top wobbles gently, then steadies, turning with vibrant energy that echoes the banquet's pulse. You inhale the child's laughter as though it were incense, sweet, fleeting, pure, and you exhale a vow to carry this moment's light within you, even as the hall's revelry continues. You step back as the top slows to a stop, and the boy's father emerges, his robes etched with gold and deep green, offering a nod of thanks that shines with unspoken respect. You sense the hall's tapestry of warmth and tradition expand around you, threads intertwining feasting, worship, politics, and childhood wonder. You rise and turn toward the pharaoh's dais. Spotting him, lean forward to break bread and share it with his queen, her headdress studded with pearls that glint like captured moonlight, her smile soft as lamb's wool. You sense that even royalty finds comfort in simple bread, broken by hands guided toward one another. A gesture of shared life beneath grandure's spectacle. A hush lingers, a breath. Connection unfolds. You step back to the center of the hall until all facets of this feast converge in your senses. The heat of torches on skin, the scent of incense and spiced wine, the laughter echoing off columns, the polished marble glowing under golden hue. The flicker of prayers chant beneath it all, and you feel gratitude settle in your chest like a soft jewel for being invited into this moment of abundance and devotion, for tasting wine that carries the sun's warmth, for witnessing dance that mirrors the river's gentle flow. You close your eyes and let the banquet's pulse align with your heartbeat. Each beat a silent vow to remember this hall's glow long after torches dim and laughter fades. You exhale slowly, letting each breath honor this banquet's splendor. And you sense the hall pause in reverence as the pharaoh raises his goblet one last time, his voice rising in a toast that ripples through air and stone to eternity, to the gods, and to our shared destiny. A short sentence, a hush, and you carry this moment's warmth within you as you step away, guided by torchlight back through cedar doors and into desert night, bearing the feast's echo like a sacred flame across dunes and stars alike. You step onto the broad, flagstone courtyard before the temple's grand gate, where torch sconces cast a soft, flickering glow across towering columns carved with curling lotus and papyrus motifs. And you feel the cool night air settle around your shoulders like a gentle cloak, carrying whispers of incense lingering from the day's final rites and the faint rustle of palm fronds stirring in a distant breeze. You inhale that cool, spice-laced air notes of cedarwood and frankincense mingled with the whisper of desert sand, and you sense every breath slow, each exhalation a careful offering to the night's hush, while you position yourself beside a sentinel of granite, its surface carved with the stern visage of a jackal-headed Anubis, guardian of thresholds between worlds. A short sentence, a breath. The hush deepens. You draw your cloak tighter, feeling the linen's soft weight against your chest as you gaze up at the temple gate, its massive bronze doors etched with scenes of divine procession now shimmering faintly in torchlight, each relief catching a sliver of flame and turning it into golden filigree. You sense the air thicken with reverence as though the very stones await a costless vibration, a ripple of humility as you step forward, sandals whispering against stone, until your fingertips brush the cool metal of a bronze handle, carved in the likeness of a soaring falcon whose wings arch skyward like silent heralds of dawn yet to come. You taste the faint tang of metal upon your lips and close your eyes for a moment, letting the temple's stillness anchor you as the distant murmurs of night shift priests drift through an open window high above. Voices so soft they seem woven into the stone itself, carrying petitions and prayers northward toward invisible heavens. You open your eyes and lean closer to the gate, feeling rivulets of cool breeze dance across your cheeks, as though urging you to remain vigilant for what stirs beyond. A low groan of wind against stone echoes through the courtyard, and you sense movement just beyond the gate. A pair of guards in linen tunics patrol the temple walls, their sandals tapping in measured cadence, heels brushing against flagstones sculpted to fit the curve of their feet, sending out hollow echoes that fade into the night. You watch as one guard pauses beneath a torch sconce, lifting a hooded lamp to inspect a cluster of papyrus scrolls left by worshippers at the gates, base prayers for safe passage, for abundant floods, for divine favor, each scroll tied with flax cord that tugs at your senses like a whispered vow, a woven hope pressed silent by the hush. You shift your gaze upward to the temple's roofline, where stone parasols perch upon carved cornices, their lotus bud tops silhouetted against a sky now strewn with stars. And you feel the night's depth cradle you in its silent arms as you gather your senses, each one honing in on the smallest shift of light or breath of air. You lean back against the sentinel of granite, fingertips tracing the cool, polished surface of Anubis-carved beard, and you sense a quiet presence behind his stern gaze, an assurance that those who stand watch here are both ward and witness to the boundary between mortal and divine. A short sentence, a breath. You sense the world hold its breath. You step away from the guardian statue and pace a slow, deliberate circle of the courtyard's edge, each footfall smooth as though you glide across water's surface. And you note how the torchlight flickers once more as if stirred by an unseen hand, casting dancing shadows that ripple across columns and reliefs. You inhale the scent of burnt resin olive wood logs smoldering in hidden braziers to the east, taste dust of crushed lapis mingled with cool night air, and feel every nerve alight as though lit by unseen lantern. You sense the temple's heartbeat in that subtle pulse beneath your feet, at once ancient and immediate, a reminder that these stones were carved by hands long returned to dust. yet remain steadfast, still humming with the prayers of generations. You pause by a wellspring of moonlight splashed across the courtyard, where the temple's western facade slopes gently into shadow, and you feel the cool stone beneath your palm as you lift a small, shallow bowl of water offered by the night shift priests. Its surface still as a polished mirror reflecting a cluster of stars that drift overhead. And you bring a fingertip to that water's edge, tasting its thin, clean sweetness and inhaling the faint trace of lotus oil used to sanctify it. You close your eyes briefly, letting the water's coolness ground you, before tipping the bowl until a few droplets fall silently onto the flagstones, each drop lingering in its own soft circle before merging with the stone's memory. A hush brings stillness, a breath. Communion unfolds. You open your eyes and step back, guiding your gaze toward the temple's side gate where faint glimmers of torchlight trail upward from within a narrow corridor. You imagine priests passing beneath crescent arches as they carry morning offerings, jars of honey and figs, fresh bundles of papyrus toward the inner sanctum, as though they move through a world both distant and timeless. Their measured footsteps and whispered invocations carried upward by the night air. You inhale once more, breathing in the weight of their devotion, and you let the torchlit silhouettes pull you deeper into vigilance, each lengthening shadow, an echo of destinies carved in stone and inked upon papyrus. You shift your attention to the high wall bounding the courtyard's southern edge, where a lone priest leans against a carved niche, robe pulled tight against a sudden gust that carries fine grains of sand into his hair. And you sense him study the sky with a reed staff held upright, its tip pointed toward Orion's belt above the temple's spired columns. And you recognize the ritual of stargazing that guides the priest's prayers for celestial guidance, a practice as old as the temple itself. You move closer until the priest's robes brush your cloak's hem, and he nods once, a subtle lift of his chin, before tilting his gaze skyward once more, lips moving in silent invocation. You feel a hush roll through you, a shared reverence between sentinel and supplicant, as though breath itself has become a prayer rising to the stars. A short sentence, a breath. Reverence flows. You step away and follow the temple wall around its corner, finding a slender passage bounded by nested columns, whose capitals, scarved in mock lotus budspress, shady silhouettes against the polished floor, guiding you toward a small alcove where offerings of bread and figs rest on a stone ledge. You inhale the faint sweetness of yeast mingled with early morning dew, though dawn has not yet broken, and you sense gratitude for these sustaining gifts even as silence deepens around you. You lift a single date from the basket, feeling its skin cool beneath your fingertips, and you taste its sun-ripened sweetness as a silent benediction for the night's watch, letting the flavor settle into your chest as though offering strength to endure what remains until dawn's promise. A hush holds space, a breath. Gratitude lingers. You step back into the courtyard center and turn your gaze to the eastern gate, where two massive wooden doors stand sealed beneath a carved lintel, inscribed with protective spells. Their bronze hinges polished smooth by hands that sought to ensure no unwanted presence would cross this threshold. You feel the hush deepen as you draw near, each footstep a careful pledge that you stand guard over these sacred gates. And you notice how faint moonlight spills between slabs, creating a silver path that beckons your gaze upward toward that carved lintel. You pause before those doors, placing a palm against the weathered wood, feeling the grain's cool ridges beneath your fingertips. And you sense the latent power in these gates, symbols of boundary between sacred and profane, mortal and divine, always poised to open the temple's mysteries at dawns, whisper or to seal them until time's end. A short sentence, a breath. Reverence stands sentinel. You step away from the gate and cross back toward the north side of the courtyard, where torches flicker low as if lulled by the night's calm, their flames shifting from gold to soft amber as shadows lengthen across flagstones carved with footprints left by priests and pilgrims over countless nights. You lean against a column, feeling the cool limestone curve beneath your shoulder and pressing your cheek against its rough surface, absorbing its latent warmth, as though the stone itself contains the memory of night watches past. You close your eyes for a heartbeat, letting the hush cradle you in its silent fold, and you sense every heartbeat, yours and Stone's, as a single rhythm moment. Breath. Moment. You open your eyes and shift your gaze upward to where constellations now bloom fully in midnight sky, each star gleaming with quiet authority, and you feel a gentle resolve solidify within you to remain attentive, to honor every breath as a vow, to guard these gates until the first light of dawn ripples across the desert beyond, igniting temple walls and torch flames alike in a chorus of new promise. You inhale the night's crisp breath, cool and tinged with incense's lingering sweetness, and you exhale, letting shoulders drop as though setting down an invisible burden. You sense the courtyard's hush expand, carrying your breath into the night as though offering it to the gods above. A short sentence, a breath. Vigil endures. You step forward one final time to the center of the courtyard, lifting your gaze to every torchlit relief and carved capital around you, feeling each noise, the rustle of robes, distant footsteps. Torch flames crackle fold into a unified whisper that speaks of devotion and watchfulness, guiding you to remain steadfast as a silent sentinel of stone and breath. You close your eyes briefly, drawing in the hush, tasting the coolness upon your lips, and you open them to behold the temple in its midnight guardianship, while standing like unwavering sentinels, torches flickering like silent hymns, and the sky above vast, star-studded, unending, bearing witness to every breath drawn here tonight. A hush settles, a breath, and you hold the night's vow within you, carrying its hush as you stand watch, a solitary guardian cradled by desert wind and sacred stone, until dawn's first rays ignite the horizon beyond the temple gate. You rise before the pale glow of first light brushes the eastern dunes and step onto the cool terrace of sun-baked limestone, where the hush of midnight still lingers in the air like a sacred sigh, and you feel the chill of night recede with every breath as a slow warmth unfurls across your skin. Carried on a breeze that tastes of sand and promise, you inhale deeply, savoring the faint aroma of dew-kissed date palms mingled with residual incense drifting from temple gates, and you sense your heart rhythm align with the world's gentle awakening, each beat a drum guiding you toward the horizon's subtle flame. A short sentence, a breath. The hush begins to fade. You follow a narrow flagstone path that winds between towering obelisks etched with hieroglyphs that catch the first blush of dawn, their polished surfaces reflecting faint ribbons of rose and amber, as though breathing life into carved stone. And you feel the gentle press of sand slip beneath your sandals with each step, cool and yielding as though the earth itself remembers the ancestors who once walked these stones. Offering prayers for the sun's return, you draw near the western edge of the temple precincts, where a low rampart stands sentinel against the desert, and you lean your palm against the cool stone, fingertips tracing ancient grooves that whisper of temple workers who hoisted blocks of limestone to map out foundations under starlight, each mark a testament to purpose given form. You taste the tang of moonlit sand on your tongue, a silent echo of midnight storm that cleared the sky for this dawn's majesty. A short sentence, a breath. Reverence holds you. You step back onto the terrace's expanse and let your gaze drift across the desert's rolling sea of dunes, where shadows of night still cling to hollows and wind-sculpted ridges, and you sense the horizon's faint glow deepen, each moment stretching into a breath held between darkness and light. You close your eyes and tilt your face skyward as a pale sliver of sun emerges above a distant dune, a shy promise of warmth that quivers on the desert's edge before blossoming into brilliance. You feel its first rays brush your cheeks like a lover's gentle caress, and you exhale, releasing the tension of night as though surrendering to the sun's tender vow of renewal. The sky shifts from indigo to lavender and rose, a slow gradient that bathes every grain of sand in soft radiance, and you sense time itself stretch into infinite possibility, each moment entwined with the pulse of memory and hope. You open your eyes and step toward a slender pool of still water carved into the temple's outer wall, its surface mirroring the sky's unfolding palette like a waiting canvas, and you lean forward until your fingertips brush the glassy reflection, feeling the water's coolness seep into your skin as a gentle balm for dawn's hush, a reminder that life endures even in arid sands. You inhale the sweet scent of water mingled with desert, bloom night blooming lilies that open beneath the moons, hush floating up from shallow bowls arranged beside the pool as offerings to the sun god's return, each petal pressed against alabaster to hold scent through the chill. You draw back a moment, tasting the earth's sweetness on your tongue, and watch as tiny ripples fracture the reflection, carrying fragments of color across the water's surface like floating brushstrokes. Each ripple a quiet benediction, a short sentence, a breath. Beauty unfolds. You step from the pool and move along a low colonnade where columns carved in lotus shapes stand like silent sentinels, their capitals catching dawn's light so that each petal glimmers with golden dew, and you feel the weight of history settle into your bones as you recall priests once leaning here at first light, offering bread and wine to Ra, each offering a prayer that the sun's warmth would nurture fields and carry souls beyond death's threshold. You run a fingertip along one column's fluted shaft, feeling cool stone beneath your skin, and sense every curve of lotus carving as though guided by unseen hands that shaped each petal to honor the divine. You inhale again, tasting incense's lingering sweetness on your breath, and you sense the collective pulse of temple life gather around you, footfalls of offerings carried to sanctuaries, chants offered in low reverence, the soft clink of alabaster jars filled with perfumed oils being placed beneath carved statues of deities who stand watch through day and night. You step to the temple's outer gate where ornate bronze hinges shimmer with early light, and you press a palm to the gate's carved reliefs, scenes of the sun's daily journey across the sky, feeling the warmth of first light seep through metal and into bone, as though the sun itself pulses through these gates to awaken the world beyond. You push the gate open with gentle force, listening to the soft groan of bronze against wood, and step onto a path flanked by date palms bending under the sun's approach, their fronds whispering in greeting, casting dappled light across a carpet of fine sand scattered with tiny footprints of desert creatures awakening from night's slumber. You inhale the park's aroma, spalm sap, crushed sand, blooming acacia, and you sense each breath carry seeds of renewal, each exhalation offering gratitude to the land that gives life even in its harshest embrace. A short sentence, a breath, renewal blooms. You wander along the path toward a small rise where the great dunes crown the horizon, and you sense every step gather energy, as though the sun's warmth surging across the sand courses through your veins, igniting a pulse of clarity that sharpens the world into crisp, focused dunes, sculpted like waves of gold, each crest glowing as though lit from within, desert grasses trembling at life's fierce insistence, distant oases glimmering like emerald promises against rolling sea of ochre. You draw in a slow breath of this desert dawn dry and sweet and feel your lungs fill with clarity, each exhalation releasing the haze of night's lull, making space for the day's promise. You close your eyes for a heartbeat, letting the wind carry prayers of desert deities Amun, Sobek. Hathor whispered across centuries, now gathering in this dawn's breeze. A short sentence, a breath. Prayer lingers. You open your eyes and look back toward the temple's profile, its towers and pylons bathed in gentle gold that softens carved reliefs into shadow and light. And you sense a final hush settle around this sacred place, a vow that dawn's promise is eternal as the desert sands. You stand atop the rise and feel each grain of sand shift beneath your feet, a living witness to creation's cycle, and you taste salt and sunlight on your tongue, a fleeting echo of tears shed and prayers whispered here before, each tear and prayer woven into every dune and every carved stone. You inhale again, letting the sun's warmth steady your senses. And you exhale, surrendering to the moment's beauty. Each breath a heartbeat shared with earth and sky. A short sentence, a hush. You breathe. You linger on the terrace a moment longer, letting dawn's light settle soft and golden across your skin. And you feel the world grow quiet around you, a gentle pause where every breath becomes a soft echo. Each heartbeat a steady drum guiding you toward rest. A short sentence, a hush. You breathe. Now the storyteller's voice fades, leaving only the gentle crackle of burning wood nestled in a stone hearth somewhere beyond this quiet hall. You hear logs shift and pop as embers glow, a low rhythm that rises and falls like a slow, welcoming lullaby. The warmth of that fire reaches into your ears, curling around your thoughts until each drifting ember carries you farther from waking cares. Focus on the sound, the snap of kindling, the soft hiss of flame lapping at dry wood, the murmur of glowing coals settling into steady warmth. Let each crackle anchor you to stillness, each hiss inviting your eyes to grow heavy. A short sentence, a hush. You breathe,